Welcome to the Shorten anime channel. Today we'll dive into the latest episode of Battle Through the Heavens. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to support the channel. In a land where no magic is present, a land where the strong make the rules and the weak have to obey, a land filled with alluring treasures and beauty, yet also filled with unforeseen danger. 3 years ago, Xiao Yan, who had shown talents none had seen in decades, suddenly lost everything. His powers, his reputation, and his promise to his mother. What sorcery has caused him to lose all of his powers? And why has his fiancée suddenly shown up? Season 1, Episode 1. Doja Lee, third stage. Facing the magical testing monument as it displayed the 5 big hurtful words, the youth stood expressionless, lips curled in a small, self-ridiculing smile. He tightly clenched his fist, and because of the strength used, his slightly sharp fingernails dug deep into the palm of his hand, bringing brief moments of pain. Xiao Yan, Doji Li, third stage, rank, low. Beside the magical testing monument, a middle-aged man looked at the results on the monument and announced them with an indifferent voice. Immediately after the middle-aged man finished speaking, without much surprise, the people in the square started a commotion, ridiculing him. Third stage? As expected. This genius has once again taken a step back. This piece of trash really disgraced his entire clan. If his father wasn't the clan leader, this kind of trash would already have been kicked out of the clan. Nobody would care about him, and there wouldn't be such a thing as leeching off the clan home. How could the once famous genius of Wu Tancheng fall to become like this over the past few years? Who knows? Maybe he did something unforgivable and caused the gods to get angry. The ridicule and laughter directed at him came from all directions and resonated in the motionless youth's ears, as if piercing his heart. He could not help but breathe heavily. He raised his head to reveal a delicate and immature face, jet black eyes glancing past the people of his age that ridiculed him as well. His lips, which were previously full of self-ridicule, turned to fill with bitterness instead. These people, were they always this cold? Or was it because 3 years ago they smiled humbly to congratulate me, and now they wanted to take it back? Smiling bitterly, Xiao Yan turned around and silently walked back to the group of people. His lonesome figure seemed to be unable to fit in with the surroundings. Next up, Xiao Mei! Hearing the tester's voice, a teenage girl quickly ran up from in the crowd. The moment she got on stage, the murmurings and discussions quietened down, and every pair of fiery eyes were locked on her face. The teenage girl wasn't more than 14 years old. Although her beauty wasn't immediately evident, her small childish face combined with her innocence captured the attention of the audience. She quickly stepped forward and put her tiny hands on the black stone monument. She then closed her eyes gently. As the girl closed her eyes, the monument shined brightly once again. Daoji Li, 7th stage. Xiao Mei, Daoji Li, 7th stage. Rank, high. Yeah. Hearing the tester read out the result, the teen girl smiled proudly. 7th stage, Daoji Li. How impressive. At this rate, in 3 years, she'll be named a true doja already. She really fits the name of the clan's seedling. Hearing the unanimous praise coming from the crowd, the girl's smile turned even wider. Vanity, the temptation that so many girls are unable to resist. While chatting with her fellow sister members, her line of sight weaved through the surrounding people and landed on a lonesome figure away from them. Furrowing her brows for a while, she finally decided against walking over. Between the two of them was already a huge gap. Looking at Xiao Yan's performance these past few years, by the time the adulthood ceremony comes, he would only be able to place at the lower tier clan member ranks. She, however, with her brilliance, would become the clan's very important and thus well-nurtured fighter. There would be no limit to her future. An inexplicable sigh emerged from her. Xiao Mei thought back to the youth from 3 years ago, bursting with energy and pride. At 4, he started practicing, and at 10, he achieved the 9th stage Doji Li. At 11, he broke the 10th stage Doji Li barrier and condensed his Doji Chizu successfully. He became the youngest dojo in the clan since the past 100 years. At that time, his self-confidence as well as immeasurable power attracted countless young teens, which of course included Xiao Mei. However, the path of a genius was always winding. 3 years ago, this genius youngster, whose fame reached the absolute top, received what could possibly be the cruelest blow. The hard work he put into accumulating and condensing the doshichitsu over the past 10 years had, in just one night, vanished into nothingness. All the doji-li in his body slowly dissipated with time, and instead, pity for him grew. As a result of losing his doji-li, his physical strength decreased as well. From the position of a genius, in one night he fell below the average person. This kind of blow made the youth lose his will to carry on training. The reverence once associated with this lad had slowly changed into disdain and ridicule. Next, Shorten. Among the commotion, the tester's voice sounded yet again. Following the calling of this highly reputable name, the group of people quietened down immediately. Every single gaze turned. At the center point of attention was a teen girl clad in a purple dress, elegantly standing there. Her calm, tender, and immaculate face was completely unaffected by the many gazes of the crowd. Her calm and indifferent attitude could be compared to the blooming of a lotus. At such a young age, she already had the air of a refined lady. It would be hard to imagine how she would affect the city and the nation once she grew up. This purple dress girl, if compared to Xiao Mei in terms of beauty, was clearly several leagues above. It's no wonder the crowd would have this kind of actions. Taking small, graceful steps, the girl named Shorten walked up in front of the stone monument. She stretched her small hand out, and the purple sleeve mixed with black and gold threads fell down her arm, revealing a delicate snow-white wrist. She touched the monument lightly. In the silence, the monument shone once more. Doji Li, 9th stage, rank, high. Looking at the words on the monument, the entire square fell into deep silence. She really reached the 9th stage. How frightening. The position of the youngest high rank in the clan has been taken, without a shred of doubt, by Miss Shorten. After the silence, several teens couldn't help but wolf whistle, their eyes full of respect and awe. Doji Li was essential towards being a doji. Doji Li is split into 10 different stages, and when the body acquires 10 stages of Doji Li, it can better condense the Daoji vertex, becoming a well-respected Daoji. In the crowd of people, Xiao Mei stared at the purple dress girl in front of the monument with a little jealousy. Looking at the results on the monument, the middle-aged tester who would normally be indifferent smiled, faced her and congratulated her. Miss Shorten, half a year later, you should be able to condense the Duki vortex. If you succeed, you'll be a Duja at the age of 14, the second person to do so in the Yao clan. Of course, the second person. First would be the fallen genius, Zhao Yan. Thanks. The teen girl nodded her head lightly, her calm face showing a little happiness because of his praise. She quietly turned, and in the midst of the crowd's attention, slowly walked to the downtrodden youth in the back of the group. Brother Xiao Yan. At the youth's side, the teen girl stopped. She faced Xiao Yan and bowed respectfully. Her beautiful and gentle face showed an elegant smile, which would make the surrounding girls jealous. What qualifications do I have right now for you to call me that? He faced the girl that could be considered the clan's radiant pearl and said bitterly. She, after being downhearted for an extremely short while, continued to maintain her respect. Brother Xiao Yan, you once said to Shorten 6 before, to take on anything, one must first be able to let go. One is only truly free when he can take on and let go easily. Shorten said gently, her smiling face full of warmth. Ha ha ha. Truly free? I only know how to say it. Look at me now. Do I look like a free person? This world wasn't mine to begin with. Xiao Yan laughed at himself, saying dispiritedly. Facing Xiao Yan's somber mood, Shorten's fine brows furrowed a little, and she said seriously, Brother Xiao Yan, though I don't know what's happening to you, Shorten honestly believes that you will stand again and reclaim your lost glory and respect. She stopped for a moment, her white, tender face reddening a little. Back then, there were a lot of people who were attracted to you. Ha 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 ha. Hearing the girl's wholehearted truth, he laughed awkwardly but didn't say anything else. Other people would be swayed by it, but he did not have the qualifications nor the mood. Instead, he silently turned around and walked away from the square. Standing still and facing the lonely back of the youth, she hesitated for a while before chasing after him and walking side by side with him. Meanwhile, from behind, a jealous wolf whistle sounded. The moon was like a silver plate, and the stars filled the sky. At the summit of the cliff, Xiao Yan lay on the grass, and in his mouth was a strand of green grass. He chewed it slightly and let the bitterness spread into his mouth slowly. He raised his white palm and put it in front of him, blocking the moon and only letting some moonlight pass through the gaps between his fingers. He looked at the giant circular silver moon in the sky. Thinking back the testing in the afternoon, Xiaoyan sighed lightly. He lazily pulled his hand back and rested both hands on his head. He looked absent-minded. 15 years already, huh? A soft voice that suddenly was spat out from the young teen without any warning. In Xiaoyan's mind, there was a secret that only he himself knew. He wasn't a person from this world. More accurately, his soul wasn't from this world. He was from a deep blue star called Earth. As for unexplainable mystery of why he would be here, he himself had no clue. However, after living here for some time, he slowly realized he passed through to the other side. As he grew older, he slowly came to understand bits and pieces of this continent. This continent was called the Do-Chi continent. On the continent, there wasn't many tales of magic users and their effects, but rather Do-Chi was the main star. On this big piece of land, the training of Do-Chi had become commonplace after the hard work of countless individuals who continued to train beyond generations, expanding the knowledge surrounding Do-Chi all the way to the top. Do-Chi and mankind are one and the same in everyday life, and as such, Do-Chi is extremely important in the continent. It could be called irreplaceable. As the number of levels in Do-Chi kept increasing, so did the number of ways to train it. Some were better than others, as expected. After going through a system of analysis, the Do-Chi rankings in the Do-Chi continent got split into 4 different classes: Tian, Di, Xuan, Huang, and every class was split further into beginner, medium, and high ranks. The doji techniques you learn also determine how strong you would be. For example, if a person practiced a Zhuan class medium rank technique, he would naturally be stronger than a person who practiced a Huang class high rank technique. In the doji continent, to differentiate the strong from the weak, there are 3 criteria that need to be looked at. First, and also the most important, is your natural body strength. If a person only has a 1-star level of strength, even if he practiced the Tian class high rank techniques, he wouldn't be able to beat a Huang class combat master. Next is technique level. If 2 people of the same innate strength were to battle, the one with the better technique will obviously win. Lastly is Do technique. Dao technique is a special kind of skill that is used when controlling Do-Chi, and in the land of Do-Chi, Dao technique is also separated into Tian, Di, Xuan, Huang. Do-Chi in the continent speaks for itself, but Do technique is different. Almost everyone starts off with a Do technique class of Huang. If you wanted to learn more advanced control skills, you would need to join a sect or enroll in a Do technique school. Of course, there are some who, by chance, manage to learn the skills that others before have left behind, or those who have compatible Do techniques. For these people, their combat level might be slightly higher than normal. Relying on these 3 aspects, you can determine who is strong and who is weak. All in all, if you manage to learn a high-level Do technique, the benefits in the future would be enormous. However, high-level Dao techniques are really hard to come by as a commoner. Those that are open to the public are normal, Huang class techniques. For those bigger clans or small sects, Xuan class techniques are the norm. For example, in Xiaoyan's clan, their highest level technique was only practiced by the clan leader, Lion Wind Strike. It was a wind-style Zhuan class medium rank Do technique. Above the Xuan class would be the Dai class, but this kind of high-level techniques might only obtainable by a powerful country-like organization. As for the Tian class, in 100 years, it hasn't appeared once. As previously stated, commoners trying to get a high-level technique is like trying to climb a mountain without gear. However, nothing is absolute. In the world of Do-Chi, there are thousands of clans. In the north, there are people referred to as unbeatable. They fused their soul with wild animals and became barbarians. In the south, there are smart and talented high-class beast spirit clans, and even the strange and infamous underworld people. Because of the vastness of the continent, there are bound to be cases of nameless figures who by chance happened upon a miracle that made them strong. Or perhaps there might be people who are bound by fate to discover strong techniques. In the land of Do-Chi, there is one famous sentence: if you find yourself stuck in a ditch or forsaken by the world, don't panic. Take 2 steps forward and maybe you'll find yourself stronger than ever before. Of course, though this line isn't false in the 1,000 years of history in the continent, There aren't many stories of people getting strong by random chance. As a result of this, every day, there are countless individuals who try to break through and discover a new skill or technique, but instead only return with a broken hip or leg. All in all, this continent is full of mysteries and miracles. To access the vault of secret Du Chi techniques, you must at least be a full-fledged doju to meet the basic requirements. For Xiaoyan, it seems so far away. Pu Xiaoyan spat the grass out and quickly stood up and made a maniacal face. He faced the sky and shouted, "God damn it! How could I be played for a fool like this?" In his past life, Xiaoyan was a mediocre, average commoner. Wealth, fame, and beauty seemed to run parallel to his life, never intersecting it. Then when he came to this continent, Xiaoyan was shocked. Because of a second set of experiences, his spirit became much stronger than the average person. It must be known that in the Dochi continent, your spirit is decided upon at birth. Maybe as you grew older, it would strengthen a slight bit. But there is no known technique to train your spirit to be stronger. It was Xiaoyan's strong spirit that gave him his talent, as well as his fame as a genius. For an average person, if they were told that they could be a genius, there's little doubt that they would claim their fame and live the high life. For the run-of-the-mill person like Xiaoyan, when he started training his Doji Chi, the temptation of being able to rise to fame would be unbearable. Of course, he wouldn't choose to stay hidden and continue to train. If there wasn't any accident, Xiaoyan could perhaps grow even more with his genius label. Unfortunately, at 11, his label was stolen from him, and in one night, a genius turned into a piece of trash. After shouting at the top of his lungs for a while, Xiaoyan finally calmed down, and his face turned calm again. No matter how angry he got, he wouldn't be able to get his strength back. Bitterly shaking his head, Xiaoyan felt miserable. He had no clue what happened to his body, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. His spirit was growing as he aged, as expected. His absorption of Doji Chi was also extraordinarily fast. It was faster than the strongest fighter from a few years back. All these factors should have meant that Xiaoyan was a natural genius, but all the Doji Chi that he absorbed seemed to be completely gone. His self-esteem took a big hit, and he could only feel depressed. Taking another deep breath, Xiaoyan raised his hand. On his finger was a black ring of simple design. The material used to make it was unknown. On it were some markings as well. This was the only present his late mother gave to him before she passed. He started wearing it since the age of 4, and even now, 10 years later, he was still wearing it. It was a precious gift from his mother, and Xiaoyan treasured it dearly. He rubbed the ring and said bitterly, "These few years, I've really let mother down, huh?" Sighing deeply, Xiaoyan quickly stood up and turned around, saying to the black figure from the woods, "Father, why have you come?" Though his Doji Chi was only 3rd stage, his spiritual awareness was akin to that of a 5-star Doji, perhaps even better. While thinking about his mother, he felt a sudden disturbance from the woods. Yanira 1-1. It's already quite late. Why are you still here?" From within the cluster of trees, after a moment of silence, a tender voice sounded. The trees shaked a little, and a middle-aged man jumped out, face smiling widely. His eyes were locked on his son under the moonlight. The middle-aged man was wearing an expensive-looking gray tunic. He walked with pride and dignity, and his face showed it. He was the Xiao clan leader, as well as Xiaoyan's father, a 5-star Du Shi, Xiao Zhan. "Father, why have you not returned to rest yet?" Facing the middle-aged man, Xiaoyan's smile thickened. Although he had another set of memories when he was born, the person before him treated him as with love and care. When he lost his power and spirit, the love did not lessen but grew instead. This poked at Xiaoyan's heart, making Xiaoyan recognize him as his father. "Yun are you still thinking about what happened this afternoon?" Taking a big step forward, Xiaoyan smiled again. "Ha, what's there to think about? It's within my expectations." Xiaoyan shook his head and forced a smile. Looking at Xiaoyan's tender face, Xiaoyan let out a sigh. The both of them sinked into silence for a while, before Xiaoyan said, "Yan you're 15 now, aren't you?" "Yes, father." "Just one more year, and you have to attend the adulthood ceremony," Xiaoyan said. "Yes, father. Only a year left." Xiaoyan's fist clenched for a while before he replied. He was extremely clear what the adulthood ceremony meant. Once the ceremony had passed for the Xiaoyan that didn't train, he would be subject to the criteria of searching for Du Chi techniques. Because he was so weak, he would be sent to do a normal job in the other parts of the Shao clan. This was a clan rule, and even if the clan leader was his father, he would not be able to do anything about it. If one didn't reach Doge by the age of 25, the clan would Abaddon them. Sorry, Yan-er. If you don't reach the Doji Chi 7th stage by next year, I can't do anything to help you, no matter how much I want to. In this clan, I'm not the sole decision maker. There's also those old geezers waiting for me to make a mistake. Looking at the peaceful Xiaoyan, Xiao Zhan voiced guiltily, Father, I will continue to work hard. 1 year later, I'll definitely reach the Doji Chi 7th stage, Xiaoyan reassured his father. 4 stages in 1 year? Ah, if it were me from before, it may have been possible, but now, I might not have much of a chance. Though Xiaoyan was trying to reassure his father, he himself was bitter about it. Knowing full well Xiaoyan's position, Xiaojing could only answer with a sigh. He knew that 4 stages of Doji Chi in a year was extremely difficult. He gently patted Xiaoyan's head and smiled, saying, It's getting quite late. You should go back and get some rest. Tomorrow the clan has a guest and you shouldn't miss the ceremony. Guest? Who? Xiaoyan asked, full of curiosity. You'll find out tomorrow. Xiao Zhan winked at the restless Xiaoyan, leaving with a big smile on his face. Don't you worry, father. I'll work really hard. Xiaoyan rubbed the simple ring while raising his head and whispering. Just when Xiaoyan raised his head, the black ring on his finger suddenly lit up with a mysterious glow and flashed. Blinking, Xiaoyan realized it wasn't a person. A young man was meditating on his bed. In front of him, his hands were clasped in a weird yet relaxed manner. His chest peacefully rose and fell with the rhythm of his breath. Everything was just so natural. With every breath he took, a pale white stream of what seemed to be air darted into the young man's nose and mouth, squeezing into his body and reshaping it. As the young man was meditating, a strange yet dim sparkle appeared for a brief moment on the plain black ring that he wore on his finger. Ah. The young man slowly let out his breath and opened his eyes, blinking. A pale white light flashed across his black pupils. That was the Du Qi that had just been absorbed but not yet completely refined. It took such great effort to get that Du Qi, but fuck, it's disappearing again. No, please, no. The young man tried desperately to keep the disappearing Du Qi from slipping away, but to no avail. As the last sliver of Du Qi left his body, the young man's face changed from being calm to one of anger and despair, and his voice rose with fury. He curled his hands into fists and was rapidly clenching and unclenching them. Eventually, his visage transited from extreme anger to a forced grin. After all, there was nothing he could do about it. Wearily, he dragged his body off the bed and stretched his numb legs. With only Do Qi of a 3rd stage, such menial matters were always present. After having done a few exercises in his plain room, an old wizened voice sounded outside of his door. Young master, the clan leader has requested your presence in the hall. The young man was the 3rd son of the clan header, Xiaoyan. Above him were 2 brothers, but they had already left the clan in search of adventure. Only at the end of each year would they come back and meet their family. Overall, however, the 2 brothers were extremely nice to their little brother, Xiaoyan, even when he fell from being a genius to a piece of trash. Coming! Xiaoyan changed his clothes and went out. Outside of his room was an elder in a green robe. Let's go! Looking at the young man's fresh face, the elder nodded his head, but when he turned around, his eyes showed a flash of regret. If young master had his former talent, he probably would have been a great dojo. Such a waste. The elder and the young man crossed through the backyard and finally arrived solemnly at the welcoming hall. After politely knocking, the 2 softly went in. The hall was quite large, but there were many people already in it. At the head of the hall were Xiao Zhan and 3 emotionless elders. They were the clan elders and had equal importance to the clan leader. On the left, below the 4, were other elders from the clan. These elders didn't hold as much power as the clan elders, but nevertheless, they had quite a bit of say and weren't pushovers. Besides these elders were young men that had shown promise and talent. On the other side was 3 strangers. Looks like they were the people that Xiao Zhan foretold last night. The young man's eyes quickly swept through the strangers. Of the 3, there was an elder wearing a moon-white outfit. Although the elder was all smiles, his tiny eyes were full of energy, restlessly scanning the room. Xiao Yan's sight dipped lower, stopping at the elder's chest. On his chest was a silver moon, and besides the moon were 7 shiny stars. 7. Star de Doshur. This guy's a 7-star de Doshur? Incredible. Xiao Yao could barely refrain from gasping at the elder. The elder was stronger than his own father. In fact, he was 2 whole stars stronger. Anyone that became a Dadushur was at least a power to be reckoned with. With that kind of strength, most places would probably rush for recruitment. To be able to see such a powerful person, it's not surprising that Xiaoyan was shocked. Beside the elder were a young couple. They were also wearing moon-white robes. The male was about 20 years old and had a handsome face, coupled with a strong build. He was definitely the ideal type for any girl. Of course, the most important thing was, on his chest were 5 golden stars. This represented the strength of the young man, 5-star Duje. To be able to become a 5-star Duje at the age of 20 definitely shows the exceptional talent of the young man. With a handsome face and decent strength, this young man not only became the target of stares from young girls in the clan, even Xiao Mei occasionally sent glances to him. But the looks that the girls gave had no effect on the young man. His entire focus was concentrated on the young girl beside him. The young girl's age was similar to Xiao Yan, which made Xiao Yan flinch. Her beauty even rivaled Xiao Mei's. No, she was prettier than Xiao Mei. In the entire clan, probably only Xiao Xuner could rival her. No wonder the guys of Xiao clan chased girls outside of the clan. On the intricate ear of the young girl was a green jade earrings. As she moved around, the pieces of jade clinked together, chirping a beautiful melody and adding a hint of royalty to the girl. In addition, on the developing chest of the girl were 3 golden stars. A 3-star Duje. This girl, if she didn't use any special methods, she must be an incredible genius. Xiao Yao's heart fell. She had talent rivaling his former talent. But Xiao Yao forced his eyes away from the cold beauty. No matter what, beneath Xiao Yao's immature appearance was a mature soul. Although the girl was very pretty, he kept himself from acting like a drooling slob. Xiao Yan's actions caused a slight tension within the girl. Although she wasn't the kind that had an entire universe revolving around her, her beauty and appearance wasn't bad. Xiao Yan's random glance over her was a first for her. "Father, 3 elders!" Walking quickly, Xiao Yan courteously greeted the Xiao Zhan and the 3 elders. "Ha ha ha, Yan you came. Here, come sit." Seeing Xiao Yan arrival, Xiao Zhan stopped talking to his guests and nodded in the direction of Xiao Yan, waving his hand to indicate for Xiao Yan to take a seat. With a slight smile, Xiao Yan ignored the lazy, almost hateful gazes from the 3 clan elders and searched for his seat. But he was surprised at the result. He didn't have a seat. "Ha ha, my position in the clan is just sinking lower and lower. It was better before, but now they even embarrass me in front of guests, these old geezers." Xiao Yao ridiculed himself silently. In his mind, he shook his head as if it could block the emotions that welled up within him. Looking at the motionless Xiao Yan, the young clan members let out soft, mocking laughter, showing their happiness at seeing Xiao Yan be made a fool. Finally, Xiao Zhan realized Xiao Yan's predicament. A look of anger flashed across his face before being replaced with a bent eyebrow. "Second elder, you? Oh, really sorry. I can't believe that I forgot about young master. Heh, I'll go get someone to prepare a chair." The yellow-robed elder smiled at the staring Xiao Zhan. He patted his forehead in an act of self-criticism, but the belittling look in his eyes didn't fade. "Brother Xiao Yan, come sit here." The clear voice of a girl rang across the hall. The 3 elders tensed, their gaze shifting to Shuner in the corner. Their mouths twitched, but none of them said anything. In the corner, Xiao Shuner closed the thick book in her lap and blinked at Xiao Yan. Looking at Xiao Shuner's smiling face, Xiao Yan froze for a second. Quickly, he recovered, and after touching his nose, he walked towards Shuner under the envious gazes of the surrounding clan members. And after what seemed like the longest few seconds, he plopped next to Shuner. Xiao Yan whispered, "Thanks, you've rescued me again." Xiao Shuner lightly smiled, 2 small dimples appearing on her face. Her slender fingers flipped open the book in front of her. Even though she was extremely young, there was an air of intellectuality around her. After scanning through the page, Jun Er suddenly complained, "Brother Xiao Yan, you haven't sat beside me alone for 3 years now, right? You're a genius in the clan. Isn't it simple for you if you want friends?" Looking at the resentful face of Shun Er, Xiao Yan dryly laughed. "But the thing is, a certain someone snuck into my room every night when I was 4 to 6. And then that certain someone used a clumsy technique and weak doozy chi to strengthen my bones and meridians. Every time the same person would get himself sweating profusely before leaving. Brother Xiao Yan, do you know who he is? Shuner paused for a moment and suddenly tilted her head and smiled toward Xiao Yan. How am I supposed to know? I was so young back then. In fact, I could barely walk. How would I know? Xiao Yan's heart began to beat violently. Forcing open a smile, Xiao Yan, guilty, turned his gaze to the center of the hall. Heh. Looking at Xiao Yan's reaction, a slight smile floated on Xiao Shunier's face. Her sight moved back to the book on her lap, and as if talking to herself, she said, even though I know that person did it in goodwill. I'm a girl, right? How can I let someone carelessly touch me? If I ever find out who did it, Xiao Yan's mouth began to twitch violently. Keeping his sight straight, he shut his mouth tight. In the main hall, Zhao Zhan and the three clan elders were talking excitedly with the strange elder. The guest seemed to have something weighing on his mind, yet every time when it seemed as if he was about to broach the subject, he would swallow back the words and change the topic. Each time he did this, the delicate girl next to him would give the elder a subtle yet firm glance. After listening on to their conversation for a while, Xiao Yan was bored by their conversation, and his head was slowly drooping. Brother Xiao Yan, do you know who they are? Right when Xiao Yan was about to fall asleep from boredom, Shun who was beside him, opened her ancient book and asked Xiao Yan, do you know? Xiao Yan curiously looked at Shun Did you see the symbol of a silver sword with the clouds on the cuff of their robes? Shun said with a light smile. Oh? Xiao Yan looked towards the cuffs of the three, and indeed there he clearly saw the embroidered symbol of a sword sparkling in the clouds. They are from the faction of Misty Clouds? Xiao Yan asked in bewilderment. Even though Xiao Yan had never gone out into the real world, he had read from books about this faction. Xiao Yan's clan lived in a city named Wutan City, which was part of the Jiama Empire. Even though this city is listed as being one of the bigger cities within Jiama Empire, it was still dwarfed by the size of the empire, despite having the Magic Monsters mountain range behind it. Within the city itself, Xiao Yan's clan was the biggest. Besides the Xiao clan, there were two other clans that competed with the Xiao clan, but even after 24 years of blood and strife, they were unable to overtake the Xiao clan. If the Xiao clan was the strongest power in Wutan City, then the faction of Misty Clouds would be the strongest power in the entire Jiama Empire. The difference between the Xiao clan and the faction of Misty Clouds was enormous, to the point where Xiao Yan's father, Xiao Zhan, who normally kept a strict and harsh face, was extremely respectful in front of these guests. Why are they here? Xiao Yan whispered. Shun Er's slim fingers paused. Maybe it's related to you, Brother Xiao Yan. Me? But I don't have any relationship with them? Hearing Shun Er's response, Xiao Yan paused before shaking his head and whispering back. Do you know the name of the girl up there? Shun Er glanced at the girl. No, do you? Xian Yan furrowed his brows as he examined the face of the girl Shun Er pointed out. He cannot recall ever having seen her before. She's Nalan Yanren. A curious expression floated on Shun Er's face. Xiao Yan stiffened. Nalan Yanren? The granddaughter of Nalan Ji, the Lionheart commander of Jiama Empire? She's my fiancée that was set between our families before I was born. Hey, grandfather and Nalan Ji were like blood brothers, and at that time, you and Nalan Yanren were born around the same time, so the two decided that you guys would get married. But unfortunately, 3 years after you were born, grandfather died in a fight with a clan enemy, and as time passed, Xiao clan's relation with the Nalan family became weaker. Juner paused and looked at Xiao Yan, who was absorbed in Juner's story. Nalan Jie is not only arrogant, he also puts extreme emphasis on promises. The marriage was decided by him, so even though your name has been quite bad the past few years, he has never once thought of annulling the marriage. That geezer sure is quite obstinate, Zhao Yan smiled. Nalan Ji has the final say in all matters within the family, so even though he really is very fond of his granddaughter, no one in the family has stepped up to oppose the marriage. Shun Er's beautiful eyes lightly glanced at Xiao Yan before continuing. But 5 years ago, Nalan Yanran became a student under the faction leader of Misty Clouds. In these 5 years, Nalan Yanran demonstrated incredible talent. When a person has enough power to change the path of their life, they would try their hardest to change things that they don't like, and unfortunately, she absolutely hates her promised marriage with Brother Xiao Yan. You're saying that she came to cancel the marriage? Xiao Yan's face darkened. At this moment, he was furious, not because Nalan Yanran did not want him as her husband, but rather because Nalan Yanran is trying to cancel the marriage with the entire clan present. If that happens, then his father would lose much of his dignity and respect within the clan. Xiaoyan slowly breathed in, the cold air calming his raging thoughts. Within his sleeve, Xiaoyan curled his fists, thinking, if I was a doucher, who would dare to trample over my dignity? It was true, if Xiaoyan was a doucher, then even if Nalan Yanran had the backing of the faction of Misty Clouds, she would not be able to do such a thing. A 15-year-old doucher, there were only a few that had such high accomplishments in the entire history of Dochi mainland. And the few people that were at that level when they were that young are now some of the most influential people in the entire Dochi world. A small, fragile hand cleverly evaded Xiaoyan's sleeves and held onto Xiaoyan's hands. Shuner softly said, Brother Xiaoyan, if she really cancels the marriage, then that's her own loss. I believe that in a couple of years, she will be regretting her decisions today. Regret? Xiaoyan sneered. With my current abilities, I don't have that kind of luxury. Xiaoyan paused before changing the tone of his voice. Wait, Shuner, how are you so familiar with them? The things that you've just said, my father might not even know some of them. How do you know all these? Shuner stiffened, but did not say anything. Looking at Juer's avoidance on the subject, Xiaoyan could only helplessly smile. Even though Shuner was also part of the Xiao family, she and Xiaoyan didn't have any relation by blood. In addition, Xiaoyan had never seen Shuner's parents, and every time he asked his father about them, Xiaoyan would shake his head and not speak. Soon, Shuner's parents became a taboo subject, something that they seemed to fear speaking about. For Xiaoyan, Shuner's identity was always veiled in mystery. No matter how hard or how cleverly he tried, Shuner would always stay silent. Ugh, whatever. If you don't want to say it, then don't. Shaking his head, Xiaoyan's face suddenly darkened again. The guest elder, under the repeated signals from Nalan Yanran, finally stood up. Ha! Using the faction of Misty Clouds to pressure father, this Nalan Yanran certainly is using some shameless tactics. Fury began to build within Xiaoyan's heart. Ahem. The white-robed elder cleared his throat and stood up. Putting his hands together, he smiled. Clan leader Xiaojan, the reason we came here for today is because we would like your help for something. Of course, Geya, if you have any problems, just let me know. If I can help you solve it, then I definitely wouldn't dare say no. To the visiting elder, Xiaojan did not refuse, but since he did not know what the request was, he did not make any promises either. Hey, Leader Xiao, do you know her? Geya smiled lightly and pointed to the girl next to him. I'm sorry, this girl is... Xiaojan looked over the girl and awkwardly shook his head. When Nalan Yanran became Yunjun's student, she was only 8. After studying in the faction of Misty Clouds for 5 years, she had changed quite a lot. Before she was only a child, but now she is a blooming teenager. Her name is Nalan Yanran. Uncle Xiao, I haven't come to pay my respect in a long time. It's my fault that you don't recognize me, Nalan Yanran sweetly said. Hey, Yanran, I heard that you've become a student under Yunjun. At the time, I thought that it was just a baseless rumor, but now I realize that it's actually true. What incredible talent you must have, Xiaojan complimented. It was just good luck. Smiling lightly, Nalan Yanran began to feel uncomfortable and lightly tugged Geye's robe with her hand under the table. Hey, Leader Xiao, the request that I have relates to Yanran. In addition, this was assigned by our faction leader. Geya kept his smile, but when he mentioned the faction leader, he subconsciously lessened his smile and his face grew serious. Like Geya, Xiaojan stopped smiling. The faction leader of the faction of Misty Clouds was one of the most important people in the entire Jiama Empire. Xiaojan, who was a small clan leader, wouldn't dare to provoke her. But with her power, what would she need Xiao Clan to help with? Geya did say that it was related to Yanran. Is it that? A wandering thought crossed Xiaojan's mind, causing the edge of his mouth to twitch slightly and his firm hand to start trembling. Thankfully, his hands were covered by his long sleeves. Taking care to push down the thought, Xiaojan shakily asked, Mr. Geya, please do tell me what is the faction's request. Geya hesitated, but he thought about how much the faction leader adored Yanran, and thus he clenched his teeth. Leader Xiao, you know how strict the rules are in the faction. In addition, faction leader views Yanran very highly. In fact, Faction leader is expecting Yanran to be the next faction leader. However, due to a special rule, future faction leaders cannot have a relation with another male before they become the official faction leader. Taking a breath, Geye continued. When our faction leader asked Yanran about it, she realized that Yanran and the Xiao clan had a marriage proposal. Therefore, faction leader asked for leader Xiao to cancel this marriage. Ka! The jade cup in Xiaozhan's hands turned into a fine mist in an instant. In the main hall, everyone was silent. The three clan elders were shocked by Geye's words, but soon afterwards, the elders glanced at Xiaozhan with plain glee and ridicule. How will you respond to this? The three elders thought sinisterly. A couple of the younger kids didn't know about the set marriage between Yao Yan and Nalan Yanran. But after asking their parents about it, their faces brightened. Their glances towards Xiao Yan were full of ridicule and distaste. Looking at Xiaozhan's dark face, Nalan Yanran lowered her head and squeezed her fingers together. Leader Xiao, I know that this request is a little over the top, but because faction leader requested it, please cancel the marriage. Helplessly letting out a breath, Geye lightly whispered to Xiaozhan. Xiaozhan's hands curled into fists. A faint green dew qi slowly creeped over his body, and finally, it formed a illusory lion's head in front of Xiaozhan's face. Xiao Clan's secret qi method, Furious Lion's Rage. Level, Middle Zhuan. Looking at Xiaozhan's reaction, Geye's face became serious. He moved to place Yanran behind him, and within his eagle claw-like hands, a green dou qi gathered. The dou qi released small but sharp illusory swords. Faction of Misty Cloud's qi method, Greenwood Sword. Level, Lo Xuan. With the release of dou qi, the weaker youngsters within the main hall became pale and felt their chests tighten. When Xiaozhan's breathing became more intense, the three elders yelled out. Their voices were like lightning that swept through the hall. Xiaozhan, stop! Don't forget, you're the clan leader of Xiao Clan. Xiaozhan stiffened, and the dou qi on his body disappeared slowly. Xiaozhan fell back into his chair and emotionlessly watched the lowered head of Yanran. Finally, he said in a raspy tone, Nalan, you have some guts. With such a daughter, I'm really envious of Nalan Su. Nalan Yanran twitched. Uncle Xiao? No, call me clan leader Xiao from now on. I don't deserve to be called uncle. You're the future faction leader of the faction of Misty Clouds. In the future, you're probably one of the most important people in Duchi mainland. My Xiao Yan only has modest talent. He doesn't deserve you. Thank you, clan leader Xiao. Hearing Xiao Kun's words, Geye's face brightened. Apologizing, he says, Clan leader Xiao, faction leader understands that today's request is quite disrespectful. Therefore, she asked me to bring something. Please accept it as an apology from our faction leader. Geye touched a ring on his hand, and suddenly a completely pan-green jade box appeared in his hand. Carefully opening the box, a fragrance swept through the entire main hall. Anyone who smelled it felt relaxed. The three elders' curiosity got the better of them, and they poked their head to see the contents of the box. Qi gathering powder? Within the jade box, a green pill, about the size of a dragon's eye, laid quietly. The refreshing scent that had spread throughout the entire hall was emanating from the pill. In Dou Qi mainland, to become a Dou Jie, one needs to be able to compress the qi within one's own body to a qi cyclone. But the process of compressing qi to become a qi cyclone has an extremely high failure rate. After failing, one's 9 duan qi would fall back to 8 duan. Some unlucky people need to compress their qi 10 or more times before they are successful in doing so. But by wasting so much time on the compression of qi, one would lose the best time to practice qi and thus destroy their future. Qi gathering power, its use was to allow someone with 9 duan qi to have a 100% success rate when trying to compress one's qi. This effect makes many people red-eyed. After all, anyone that's not a Dao Jie is treated extremely badly. But qi gathering power isn't something made by nature. Rather, it was made by someone. Alchemist. In Dao Qi mainland, the sole profession that's more desirable than a Dao Jie are alchemists. Like the name suggests, alchemists are able to create special pills that raise one's strengths. Every free agent alchemist is sought after by many forces. The reason as to why alchemists have such a high position is because of how rare alchemists are and how strict the requirements to become an alchemist are. First of all, one must be of the fire attribute. And then, within the fire attribute, one must have a tiny sliver of the wood attribute to act as a catalysis in pill refining. In the Doshi mainland, a person's attribute is determined by their soul. A soul since birth will only have one soul attribute and reject any other attribute. So it's impossible for a person to have two attributes. Of course, nothing is impossible. Within 1 million people, there will always be someone who has a mutated soul. Within these people that have mutated souls, some have the potential to become alchemists. However, a person that has the fire and wood attributes is not enough to become an alchemist. That's because one must also have a strong soul perception or soul molding. In the refinement of pills, the 3 most important requirements are the material, the flame, and one's soul perception. The material. They would have to be natural treasures. After all, even the best alchemists can't create a god-tier pill from trash material. Therefore, good base materials are very important for good pills. The flame, or the fire that's required when refining pills. The fire used in refining pills can't be normal flames, but rather, they must be Do-Chi flames, created though Do-Chi with a fire attribute. Of course, there are some extremely strong mutated flames in nature. Some strong alchemists would take these flames and use them to refine pills instead of their own Do-Chi flame. Not only do these mutated flames boost the success rate of the refinement, they also increase the effectiveness of the pills. Because refining pills is a gruesome task, extended periods of refinement requires a lot of Do-Chi, and because of that, every brilliant alchemist is also a strong fire-type Do-Ji. The final requirement is soul perception. When refining a pill, the intensity of the flame needs to be controlled with ridiculous precision. If the flame is slightly too hot, the pill within the furnace would be burned to ashes, wasting the time and effort of the alchemist. Therefore, controlling the intensity of the flame is a prerequisite to becoming an alchemist. But in order to have a control over the flames, one must have an incredible soul perception. Without soul perception, even if one meets or even exceeds the first 2 requirements, it would be pointless to try to refine pills. Under these strict conditions, the ones who have the qualifications to become an alchemist are few and rare. Because there aren't that many alchemists, the magical pills that they refine are also few and sparse. Since rare things are valuable and pills can definitely be defined as rare, alchemists all have an honorable, to an exaggerated extent, position. Within the main hall with the gas of the 3 elders, the younger generation all stare at the jade box in Geia's hands. Next to her father, Xiaomei licks her red lips with her soft tongue and stares at the box, without blinking. Hey, this was refined by our honorable elder Gu He. I think that everyone here has heard of his name, right? Looking at the embarrassing appearance of the 3 elders, Geie started becoming arrogant. This pill was refined by the Pill King Gu He? Hearing Geie's words, the 3 elders once again embarrassed themselves. Pill King Gu He, an extremely influential alchemist within the Jiama Empire. His alchemy is mysterious and unpredictable, causing countless different forces to try to fawn upon him. Not only does Gu He have extraordinary talent in alchemy, his own strength is at the level of a Du Wang, and he's one of the top 10 Daojis in Jiama Empire. Refined by his hands, the Qi gathering powder's value is probably exponentially higher than other normal Qi gathering power. The 3 elders smile at the Qi gathering powder within the jade box. If the Xiao clan gets this Qi gathering powder, then the Xiao clan can probably develop another young dojo. Right when the 3 elders were thinking about how to get the pill for their own grandsons, a young voice filled with fury resonates within the main hall. Mr. Guille, it would be better if you kept the pill. Your request, we might not accept it. The main hall fell silent, and everyone's gaze turns upon the delicate face of Xiaoyan in the corner. Xiaoyan, you don't have the right to say anything right now. Be quiet. One of the elders' face became dark as he yells at Xiaoyan. Xiaoyao, be quiet. I know that you're not happy about this, but we'll decide what will happen. Another quite old elder said to Xiaoyan, 3 elders, if your sons or grandsons had their marriage released today, would you still be saying that? Xiao Yao slowly stands up. The edge of his mouth was curved upwards in ridicule. Since it was apparent that the 3 elders treated him with disdain, why should he be so respectful to them? You? Hearing Xiao Yan's words, the 3 elders couldn't find a way to argue against his words. The grumpy 3rd elder even started materializing his duchi in anger. 3 elders, Xiao Yao Gege isn't wrong. He's the victim of this, so you guys shouldn't decide for him. A clear girl's voice rang across the main hall. Hearing the girl's voice, the three elders' arrogance fell, and after exchanging worried glances, they all nodded and sat back down. Looking at the three elders backing off, Xiao Yao turns his head back and deeply gazes at the smiling Xiao Shuner. Who are you, to be able to make the three elder fear you? Pressing down his confusion, Xiao Yao quickly walks up and respectfully bows to his father, Xiao Zhan. Afterwards, he turns around to face Nalan Yanran. Slowly letting a breath of air, he asks, Lady Nalan, I would like to ask a question. Your visit here today to release the marriage, did grandfather Nalan give his consent? Before, when Xiao Yan came out from his corner, Nalan Yanran already felt uncomfortable with him. Now hearing his question, her brow scrunches up. This guy, at first I thought he was pretty nice, but he's actually extremely shameless. Does he not know the difference between the two of us? Criticizing Xiao Yan in her mind, Nalan Yanran never considered how releasing the marriage would put Xiao Yan and his father into an awkward and infuriating situation. Standing up and staring at the should-be husband of hers, Nalan Yanran says, Grandfather didn't give his consent, but this is my own problem and not related to him. Since grandfather hasn't said anything, then I hope that you will forgive my father for not accepting your request. Our marriage was set by our two grandfathers, and since none of them have said to release the marriage, then this marriage will go on. Or else the people that are trying to release the marriage would be disrespecting their ancestors. I think that within our clan there aren't any people that would do such a dishonorable thing. Xiao Yan tilts his head and stares straight at the three elders. Using the dishonorable title, Xiao Yan forced the elders to be silent. In the strict clan, doing something as blasphemous as disrespecting one's ancestors would be enough for them to lose their spot as an elder of the clan. You... After being rebuffed by Xiao Yan, Nalan Yanran couldn't find any argument to retort Xiao Yan's claim. Her face became ashen and heavily stomping her feet. Her princessy nature became apparent. Looking at the young man with disgust, she annoyingly says, Under what conditions will you release the marriage? Were the reparations too little? All right, I can ask my teacher to give you another 3 key gathering powder. In addition, if you want to, I can let you join Faction of Misty Clouds and learn profound Du Qi training methods. Is that enough? Hearing the attractive conditions from Nalan Yanran, the three elders' breathing started to become heavy. Within the main hall, the younger generation swallowed the saliva. Joining Faction of Misty Clouds? God, that's the dream of countless people. After saying all these conditions, Nalan Yanran raised her snow-white chin, like a princess addressing her servants. She waited for Xiao Yan's response and knew that these conditions were enough to make any young man crazy. Unlike what Nalan Yanran expected, after saying the alluring condition, the young man in front of her started trembling. He slowly raised his head, and his delicate and young face was contorted into a fearsome, savage face. Even though Xiao Yan had endured countless taunts over the past 3 years, even he had a limit. Nalan Yanran's actions had roughly stepped on the final shred of dignity hidden deep within Xiao Yan's heart. Ah! Seeing the vicious face of the young man, Yanran sprang backwards. The young man by her sides took the chance to pull out his sword and coldly stared at Xiao Yan. I want to kill you! Even though his teeth were clattering, Xiao Yan's words had an unmistakable killing intent to them. His hands were curled into fists, and within his black pupils, furious flames burned. Yan, you're being rude. At the top of the hall, Xiao Zhan was shocked by the reaction of Xiao Yan and hurriedly quieted Xiao Yan. The current Xiao clan wouldn't dare be on the wrong side of Faction of Misty Clouds. Even though his fist tightened even further, Xiao Yan lowered his head. Moments later, he lightly lifts up his head. The difference was that the vicious face that he had displayed earlier had been completely replaced by a calm and impassive face. In the past 3 years, Xiao Yan had endured countless discrimination and taunts. As a result, Xiao Yan was now more mature than before. Perhaps his greatest gain from the past 3 years was that he had learned to keep his emotions under control. Looking at the completely different young man, Ge Ye and Nalan Yanran suddenly felt a chill. This kid, if he stays useless, then it isn't a big deal. But if he gains strength, then he will definitely become a dangerous force to be reckoned with. Ge solemnly thought. Xiao Yan, even though I don't know why my actions have infuriated you thus far, but you should still release the marriage. Slowly letting out a breath, Nalan Yanran pushed her fear and stiffened her face. Remember, my visit to Xiao Clan was permitted by my teacher, the faction leader of Faction of Misty Clouds. Pursing her lips, Nalan Yanran said, with a slight hint of helplessness, "You can understand that my visit today is partly coercion, but you should understand that the reality is harsh and nothing is fair. Even though it shouldn't mean much, you should understand the difference between us. We don't have any hope of being together." Hearing the absolute statements of the girl, Xiaoyan's mouth curved into a sneer. "Lady Nalan, you should understand, in Doqi mainland, a woman going back on her marriage would be embarrassed the opposite party in front of everyone. Hey, I don't really care about being embarrassed, but my father, he's the clan leader. If we accept your request today, then how do you expect him to rule over Xiao Clan? How will Xiao Clan keep a foothold in Wutan City?" Looking at the furious young man, Nalan Yanran's brows furrowed. She peeked at Xiaojan at the end of the hall. He appeared as if he had just aged by a lot. Seeing that, she felt slightly sorry for her actions and bit her lips. After musing for a moment, her eyes lit up. She whispers, "Today's request, it's a little reckless on my part. So today I will temporarily take back my request to release my marriage. But you must promise me something." "What promise?" "I can delay today's request for 3 years. 3 years from now, you will come to Faction of Misty Clouds and challenge me. If I win, then I will release the marriage in front of everyone. And at that time, you would have performed your clan's rites of adulthood. So even if you lose, you won't be affecting your father Xiaojan or Xiao Clan. Do you accept?" Hey, when I lose then, it won't affect the name of my father. But maybe for my entire life, I'll bear the shame of losing. This woman is too cruel. Xiaoyan felt helpless. He was angry, but he couldn't find a source to vent it. "Lady Nalan, it's not like you don't know the condition of Yan Er. How do you expect him to challenge you, insulting him like this? Is it fun for you?" Xiaojan smacked the table and angrily stood up. "Xiaojan Shu, when releasing a marriage, there must someone who bears the responsibilities of it. If not for you, I would be releasing the marriage today. Afterwards, I will announce it to the public." After being blocked several times, Nalan Yanran was also getting angry and coldly shouted at Xiaoyan, "Since you don't want to hurt the name of Xiaojan Shushu, then accept the challenge. 3 years or now, will you choose the former or the later?" "Nalan Yanran, you don't need to act all high and mighty. The reason behind you releasing this marriage is because you don't think that I, Xiaoyan, a near cripple, match you, a genius. Forgive me for putting things plainly. Besides your beauty, I don't care about anything else of yours. The faction of Misty Clouds is very strong, I'll admit that. But I am young. I have lots of time. When I was 12, I was a doja. But you, Nalan Yanran, when you were 12, how many Duan Qi did you have? You're right, I might be crippled right now. But since I created miracles 3 years ago, why do you think that I can't repeat such miracles in the future? Why do you think that I can't become the genius that I once was?" Facing the aggressive stance, Zhao Yan finally erupted like a volcano. His face became completely serious, and his words shocked everyone in the main hall. Who would have thought that the quiet young man possessed such a sharp tongue? Nalan's mouth twitched. Even though she was extremely pissed at Xiao Yan, she couldn't find words to argue against his statements. Xiao Yan's words were truth. Even though he was crippled now, he was a doje back when he was 12 years old. But Nalan Yanran was only 8 Duan Qi at that time. "Lady Nalan, because of grandfather Nalan, I'll give you some advice. 30 years east, 30 years west. Don't you dare bully me because I'm poor now." Xiaoyan's tough words made Nalan stiffen. "Yes, what a great saying. Don't you dare bully me because I'm poor now. My son can't possibly be ordinary." At the end of the hall, Xiaojan's eyes were lit with vigor, and his heavy palms slammed against the table, causing tea to splatter everywhere. Clenching her teeth and staring at the sneering young man in front of her, Nalan became so angry that her head began to feel dizzy. Nalan Yanran had been spoiled since birth and had never been humiliated by someone the same age as her. Her childish voice climbed another pitch. "What is your basis for humiliating me? Even if your talent before was unsurpassed by anyone, you're a cripple now. Okay, I, Nalan Yanran, will wait for the day that you surpass me. Today's release, I won't mention it anymore. But 3 years from now, I will wait for you at Faction of Misty Clouds. If you have the guts, then show me how you've changed your situation. If you defeat me then I, Nalan Yanran, will be your slave for the rest of my life. Of course, if you're still crippled 3 years later, Then you better prepare the contract to release our marriage. Looking at the ashen face of the girl, Zhao Yan ridicules. It won't take 3 years. I wouldn't want you even if you were begging me to become my wife. After saying that, Zhao Yan ignored the frozen face of Yan Ran and turned around. Quickly walking forward to a table, he took out a paper and started to write. The ink slowly dropped onto the paper, and finally his pen stopped moving. Suddenly, Xiao Yan's right hand reached for a short sword on the desk and pointed the sharp blade at his left hand. As soon as readied the sword, he firmly drew blood from his left hand. His bloodied hand pressed down on the white paper, leaving a glaring red mark. Lightly picking up the contract, Zhao Yan laughed, a laugh of victory. When he walked past Yanran, he smashed the contract on the table. Don't you dare think that I, Xiao Yan, think highly of some genius wife. This contract isn't a contract to release the marriage, but rather I am divorcing you from the Yao clan. From now on, you, Nalan Yanran, have no relations with the Yao clan. You dare divorce me? Looking at the bloody contract on the table, Nalan Yanran's eyes opened wide in disbelief. With her beauty, talent, and background, to have been divorced by a small clan's cripple? This sudden turn of events made her think that she was in a dream. Coldly looking at Nalan Yanran's dumbfounded expression, Xiao Yan turned around and kneels in front of Xiaozhan. He gave a heavy kowtow, biting his lips, and didn't say anything. Even though Xiao Yan actually divorced Nalan Yanran, when the events spread out, others might not think that it's the truth. They, who don't know what happened, would think that Nalan Yanran used her tyrannical background for force Xiao clan to release the marriage. After all, with Yanran's beauty, talent, and background, a cripple from Xiao clan would never be able to match her. No one would think that Xiao Yan had the boldness to divorce a future faction leader of the faction of Misty Clouds. Because of that, being Xiao Yan's father, Xiao Zhan would probably have to endure endless ridicule. Looking at the kneeling Xiao Yan and understanding the guilty feelings that his son was having, Xiao Zhan helplessly smiled. I believe that my son won't stay crippled forever. Gossip won't stand a chance when the hard facts come out in the future. Father, 3 years from now, I will go to faction of Misty Clouds and redeem today's shame. With slightly wet eyes, Xiao Yan did another heavy kowtow and stood up. Without hesitating, Xiao Yan walked towards the door of the main hall. When he passed Nalan Yanran, Xiao Yan pauses of a moment and spits out cold words from his young mouth. 3 years from now, I will find you. The shadow of the young man, under the shining sun, extended extremely far. Looking at it, it seemed very lonely. Nalan Yanran's small mouth opened, but no sound came out. She stared at the disappearing back of Xiao Ya, and the contract in her hand felt as heavy as a mountain. Ahem, since your goal has been accomplished, please leave now. Looking at the receding young man, even though Xiao Zhan's face was impassive, the hands inside of his sleeve curled into fists so tight that the fingers became a pale white. Xiao Shushu, I apologize for today's event. If you have time in the future, make sure to come visit the Nalan clan. Lightly bowing to the impassive Xiao Zhan, Nalan also didn't want to stay. She quickly stood up and went towards the door of the main hall. Behind her, Gei Ye and the handsome young man quickly followed her. Take the chi gathering powder. Waving his hand, Xiao Zhan threw the jade box on the table at them. Gei Ye quickly caught the falling box and bitterly smiled while placing the box within his ring. Lady Nalan, hopefully you won't regret your actions today. And also don't assume that with faction of Misty Clouds behind you, you can do anything you want. There are a lot of people stronger than Yun Yun. When Nalan Yanran was about to exit the door, a clear girl's cold voice sounded within the hall. The steps of the three paused, and they glanced toward the corner where the voice came from, finding a purple-dressed girl slowly flipping a book. The sunlight shined through the window next to her and perfectly wrapped around the girl. From afar, she looked like a heavenly purple lotus blooming, clean and graceful, as if she was from the heavens. As if she felt the glances from the three, the girl picked her head up from the old book, and within the autumn-like eyes of hers, a thin line of golden flame peeked out. Looking at the thin flame within the girl's eyes, Gei Ye immediately stiffened, and a fearful expression crossed his wizened face. His shriveled hands immediately grabbed the confused Nalan Yanran and young man, and he fled from the main hall as if he was fearing for his life. Looking at the actions of Gei Ye, except for a few people, the others all had expressions of confusion. Emotionlessly leaving the main hall, the frustrated Xiao Yan followed his daily routine and slowly climbed to the top of the mountain behind the clan building. Sitting at the top of the mountain, Xiaoyan calmly watched the steep mountaintops far away, being shrouded in mist. There in the mist was the Jiama Empire's famous Magic Beast mountain range. Heh, power, aha. In this world without power, you're not even worth some excrement. At least no one tries to trample on excrement. With shoulders waving up and down, the young man's soft, self-taunting voice echoed across the top of the mountain, filling the air with sadness. Yanking his hair, Xiaoyan bit down on his lip, allowing the bloody taste to spread in his mouth. Even though he didn't let his emotions get to him in the main hall, the Nalan Yanran's words stabbed at his heart like knives. I will never be insulted like this again. Opening his left hand, which still had the bloody scar from the events of the day, Xiaoyan's voice was hoarse but firm. Haha, kid, looks like you need some help. Right when Xiaoyan pledged his oath, a wizened, strange laugh entered his ear. Xiaoyan's face changed and he immediately turned around. With a hawk-like gaze, he scanned his surroundings but didn't even find a shadow. Stop searching, I'm on your finger. Right when Xiaoyan thought that he was hallucinating, the strange laugh aimlessly sounded again. Xiaoyan's eyes contracted and his gaze fell on his right hand's black ring. You're talking? Enduring his heart's pounding, Xiaoyan tried to keep his voice calm. Kid, you're quite calm to not have been scared witless. From the ring, a taunting voice sounded. Who are you? Why are you in my ring? What are you trying to do? After calming himself, Xiaoyan asked the essential questions. Who am I? You don't need to know. I won't harm you. Ha 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 ha. After all these years, I finally found someone with a soul strong enough. What luck. I should thank you for your offerings over the past 3 years. Otherwise, I would probably still be sleeping. Offerings? Xiaoyan blinked his eyes in confusion. After a moment, his face darkened, and chilling words jumped out of his teeth with difficulty. My Du Qi disappearing. You did that? Heh, I had to do that. Kid, don't be mad at me. The normally calm and composed Xiaoyan became enraged like a lunatic. His small face was filled with savagery, and without caring that the ring was the only memento of his mother, he ripped the ring off of his finger and flung it over the cliff with all of his might. As the ring left his hand, Xiaoyan's mind finally cleared. Hurriedly, he tried to catch the flying ring, but the ring had already passed Cliff, free-falling down the mountain. Staring at the ring disappearing into the mist, Xiaoyan was stunned for a long time. Finally, his face lost its savagery and calmed. He smacked his forehead, upset. Idiot, that was too reckless. Too reckless. To realize that the culprit of his humiliation for the past 3 years was the ring he always wore. It was unsurprising that Xiaoyan reacted so violently. After sitting at the edge of the cliff for a long time, Xiaoyan helplessly shook his head. Standing up, he prepared to go back, but his eyes widened and his finger shakily pointed at the thing in front of him. In front of Xiaoyan was the pitch-black ring floating in the sky. But the thing that surprised Xiaoyan the most was the transparent, wizened figure above the ring. Hey, kid, you don't need to be so mad, do you? I only took 3 years of your Du Qi. The transparent elder smiled at the stunned Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan's mouth twitched, and he pushing down his anger. He said, Geezer, since you were hiding within the ring, then you should know how much pain you've caused me since you took my Du Qi, right? But with these 3 years of humiliations, you've matured, right? Do you think that 3 years ago you would have had this kind of tolerance and mindset? Xiaoyan furrowed his brows, but his emotions started to calm down. After the rage, a hint of happiness took over Xiaoyan. Since he knew why his Du Qi was disappearing, his talent had returned. Thinking about the chance to take off the title of crippled that countless others had put on him, Xiaoyan felt as if he had been reborn. The detestable elder in front of him didn't look as annoying as before. Some things after they disappear would make one start appreciating their value. After losing and regaining it, one treasures it more. Lightly twisting his wrist, Xiaoyan let out a long breath and said, Even though I don't know who you are, I would like to know if you plan on staying in the ring to steal my Du Qi. If that's the case, then I would ask for you to find a new owner. I can't afford to keep on raising you. Hey, other people don't have as strong of soul perception as you. The elder stroked his beard. Since I already chose to appear, then before you give me permission, I won't take your duchy. Xiaoyan rolled his eyes and sneered without saying anything. He had already decided, regardless of anything the elder says, he would not keep that ring by his side. Kid, do you want to become strong? Do you want to be respected by others? Even though Xiaoyan had already decided to not have anything more to do with the elder, his heart started beating rapidly when he heard those words. I already know why my duchy was disappearing, and with my talent, why do I need you to become strong? Letting out a small breath, Xiaoyan smoothly said. He knew that there were no free lunches in this world. To owe a mysterious person a favor isn't a smart move. Kid, even though your talent is pretty good, you should know that you're already 15, but your duchy is only at 3 to 1. I think that I heard that your adult ceremony is next year, right? Do you think that within a year, using your talent and hard work, you can get to 7 to 1 chi? In addition, the girl who you promised to fight 3 years from now doesn't have shabby talent either. You want to catch up and surpass her? It's not going to be easy. The elder's face that was full of wrinkles blossomed like a chrysanthemum. If you didn't take my duchy, then do you think that any of this would have happened? You old fucker. After his biggest weakness was exposed, Xiaoyan's face darkened once again, and he started to curse. After cursing, Xiaoyan felt a hint of despair. In his current situation, no matter how much he cursed, there would be no effect. The practice of Du Qi required a strong foundation. Back when he was 4, it took him 6 years to get to 9 to 1 Do Qi. Even with his talent, getting to 7 to 1 Qi in just 1 year was hopeless. Sighing depressedly, Xiaoyan glanced at the pretentious elder. The edge of his mouth curled and he asked, "Do you have a solution?" "Maybe." The elder vaguely replied, "If you help me to get to 7 Duan Qi in just 1 year, then I'll forgive you for taking my Do Qi for 3 years. How's that?" Xiaoyan probingly asked. "Heh heh heh, wishful thinking, kid. If you can't help me, then why should I keep you, someone useless, by my side? You should find another unfortunate person." Xiaoyan knew that the transparent elder couldn't randomly take Du Qi from other people, so he knew that he had some leverage in the negotiations. "You're not even remotely close to a 15-year-old young man. Looks like these 3 years really helped you grow a lot. Did my plan backfire?" Looking at the clever Xiaoyan, the elder paused and then dumbfoundedly shook his head. Xiaoyan shrugged his shoulders and lightly said, "If you want me to keep you by my side, then you should at least have some sincerity, right?" What a sharp-mouthed kid. All right, after all, I do need your help." Without another choice, the elder nodded and slowly came to the ground. After examining Xiaoyan for a while, a treacherous smile spread across his face. But as soon as it appeared, it left, and the elder pondered for a moment before unwilling asking, "Do you want to become an alchemist?" Hearing the elder's words, Xiaoyan paused before continuing. "In the Doqi mainland, everyone wants to become an alchemist. But is it that easy to become an alchemist? There are so many harsh requirements." Suddenly, Xiaoyan's voice fell, and he raised his head. "I met the requirements?" Enjoying the shocked yet excited expression that Xiaoyan showed, the elder stroked his beard slowly. After looking over Xiaoyan for a few more seconds, he finally said with some helplessness, "Even though you barely make the cut, I owe you a favor." Whatever. I'll let this count as the favor returned." Looking at the reluctant elder, Xiaoyan thought that the geezer was lying about him barely making the cut, but he was too lazy to probe further. Despite his excitement, he still had his suspicions. "Even if I make the cut, alchemists are taught by other alchemists. Are you an alchemist?" Looking at the suspicious little face of Xiaoyan, the elder straightened, and with pride he said, "Yup, I'm an alchemist." Blinking his eyes, Xiaoyan's gaze at the elder became bright. "Alchemists? Those are really rare. Mister, if you don't mind me asking, what rank alchemist were you before?" Xiaoyan licked his lips and his young voice was infused with a hint of respect. In Doqi mainland, even though alchemists were very rare, there were still differences between alchemists. From low to high, the stages for alchemists range from the lowest, 1, to the highest, 9. The Pilkingu He that made the gathering chi powder that Nalan Yanran offered was a 6th-stage alchemist, and within the Jia Ma Empire, he could be considered to be the top alchemist. What stage? Hey, I don't remember. Hey kid, do you want to learn it or not? The elder impatiently asked while shaking his head. Of course I want to. Xiao Yan didn't hesitate anymore and hurriedly nodded with his small head. Alchemists, even with forces as powerful as faction of misty clouds, were treated with respect and deference. Hey, you want to? Since you want to, then you should pay your respects to your teachers. The elder sat on a green rock and coiled his legs beneath himself. I need to pay my respects to my teacher? Ridiculous. To not pay your respects and still expect me to teach you all that I know? You're dreaming. The elder rolled his eyes. Looks like the pedantic elder really cared about these student-teacher relationships. Helpless with a dour face, Zhao Yan could only respectfully pay his respects to the elder to become an honorable alchemist. After watching Xiao Yan finish paying his respects, the elder finally nodded his head, satisfied. In his voice, a hint of intimacy appeared. My name is Yao Lao. As for my origin, you don't need to know for now so that you don't get distracted. All you need to know is that the Pill King is only trash in my eyes. The edges of his mouth twitching, Xiaoyan watched the elder's carefree expression and thought, what is this geezer? The famous Pill King Gu He and Jiama Empire is only trash? If this spreads, then the whole of Jiama would probably assume that he's mentally ill. Lightly taking in a breath and pushing down his shock, Xiaoyan's eyes darted around, and with some droll, he asked, teacher, how will you help me to get to 7 Duan Qi within 1 year? Even though for the past 3 years your Du Qi has always been declining, your foundation in Du Qi is much firmer than other people. In Du Qi training, the foundation is the most important. Later, you'll be able to discover how many benefits these 3 years have brought you. Yao Lao's smile slowly disappeared, and he took on a more serious expression. Xiao Yan was stunned. He was never told that having one's strength taken away would bring benefits. Then when are you going to teach me alchemy? Xiao Yan steered his thoughts onto the most important thing. To become an alchemist, you need to have Du Qi of the fire attribute. So before you become an alchemist, you have to at least become a Dao Jie and learn a fire attribute, Dao Qi method. Xiao Yan held out his hand and laughingly asked, fire attribute Dao Qi method? Hey, teacher, since I'm your student, you should give me a Tian-level fire attribute Dao Qi method, right? Hearing that, Yan Lao indignantly scolded Xiao Yan. Really? Do you think that Tian-stage Dao Qi methods are like potatoes in the ground? How could you say something like that? Geezer, since I've already become your student, you can't possibly let me go into my clan to find Du Qi methods, right? Our clan's top fire attribute Du Qi method is only a high Huang level. That's way too shabby for an alchemist. Xiao Yan's face showed how depressed he was. Brat, I'm your teacher, not a geezer. Hearing Xiao Yan's disrespectful words, Yao Lao rolled his eyes when he realized that Xiao Yan didn't care about being respectful to his elders. Since you're my student, I wouldn't let you practice some shabby methods. 10-stage methods? I don't have them, but I have a method that's a lot stronger than a normal 10-stage method. Do you want to learn it? Yao Lao's turbid old eyes suddenly became conspiratorial. Stronger than a Tian-stage Du Qi method? His heart beats rapidly. Zhao Yan swallowed some saliva, and in his pitch-black eyes, a hint of anticipation could be found. Then what level Du Qi method is it? Low Huang level? Yao Lao's light laughter made Xiao Yan's face stiffen. Geezer, you were playing me? A furious voice sounded on the peak of the mountain. Looking at the twisted face of the young man, Yao Lao started laughing. To be able to make the calm Xiao Yan that mad, he had a feeling of accomplishment. What's strange about that Du Qi method? Watching Yao Lao's bantering face, Xiao Yan suddenly calmed down. It can evolve! Xiao Yan's eyes widened, and without blinking, Xiao Yan stared at Yao Lao's face, trying to find a hint that Yao Lao was lying. But after a few seconds, he shook his head. No way! I've never heard of any Du Qi method that can evolve. What do you know? Du Qi mainland is huge and strange people and things happen all the time. In your limited mind, you haven't even gone outside of Jiama Empire. There are tons of impossible things that are actually possible. Xiao Yan paused before saying, then have you ever heard about Du Qi methods that can evolve? Yao Lao's smile stiffened. Because there aren't any other like it? This Do Chi method is unique. It can evolve? Looking at Yao Lao's serious face, Xiaoyan couldn't help but ask again. It can evolve. Yao Lao seriously nodded. Have you tried it? Oh, no. Have other people tried it? Oh, no. On Xiaoyan's forehead, a vein could be seen. With his hands curled tightly, Xiaoyan tried to resist his impulse to go over and punch the elder. If no one else has ever tried it, then how do you know that it can evolve? It's explained like that on the Do Chi method. There really are such Do Chi methods? His brows furrowed. Xiaoyan hesitated before saying, "Can you let me see it?" Hey. Looking at the curious Xiaoyan, Yao Lao's mouth opened. But what came out wasn't what Xiaoyan was expecting. Never mind. There's no use if you see it now, so why don't you become a dude first before I pass it on to you? Xiaoyan's outstretched hand paused, and after the edge of his mouth twitched for a while, he spat out 3 words. "You're ruthless." Happily laughing, Yao Lao ignored the anger-filled pupils of Xiaoyan and said, "Our current mission is to get your Du Qi up to 7 Duan within 1 year." Xiaoyan pushed down his curiosity and anger for the Do Qi method and asked with clenched teeth, "How are you going to do that?" Yao Lao, with a serious face, said, "When one begins to train their Do Qi, their main focus is to build muscle and strengthen internal Qi path so that they have a foundation for when they materialize their Do Qi within their body. Because people at your age have weak internal Qi paths and can be molded, you need to take the training process step by step, and you can't use outside force to boost your training speed. Or else in the future, when your Do Qi becomes stronger, your internal Qi paths won't be able to withstand the force of Do Qi pushing through the paths, and your Qi paths would burst, which would be when you would die." Xiaoyan knew this as well as Yao Lao because in the 3 years that he was crippled, his father was very worried, and quite a few times, he tried to forcibly push Do Qi into Xiaoyan's body, but every time, at the last second, he would stop, so Xiaoyan knew the stakes involved. Yao Lao glanced at the calm Xiaoyan and satisfiedly nodded his head. "But that only applies to others. You're different. Your internal foundation was already solid and reliable 3 years ago, and since then, because of your firm personality, you never stopped training your Qi. Therefore, your foundation right now, I can say that it is great. So you want to use outside forces to train my Qi, like pills? Pretty much. But with the toughness of your Qi paths right now, you won't be able to take the force of any of the pills going through your Qi paths. Even the rudimentary gathering Qi powder you wouldn't be able to use." The rudimentary gathering Qi powder? Xiaoyan wanted to roll his eyes again. In Jiama Empire, a gathering Qi powder would fetch sky-high prices. But from his teacher, these gathering Qi powder became the most rudimentary things. The difference between the two left Xiaoyan stunned. "Then your plan?" Taking a deep breath, Xiaoyan recovered and furrowed his brows again. Hey, since pills are too fierce and can hurt your Qi paths, we need to use a milder method. Yao Lao smiles and says, "Tomorrow, prepare for me 3 complete stalks of purple-leaf bluegrass, where the older they are, the better. Also, I need 2 stalks of bone-washing flour. The age of it doesn't matter. Oh, right, I'll also need a level 1 wood-attributed monster core. These are all low-grade materials, so you should be able to get them. Someone's coming, I'll go back into the ring. Also, don't let anyone else know of my existence, including your closest family." After saying that, Yao Lao ignored the stunned Xiaoyan and jumped into the black ring. The ring shakes a bit and flies onto Xiaoyan's finger. 3 stalks of purple-leaf bluegrass, 2 stalks of bone-washing flour, a wood attribute monster core? Geezer, are you sure that's right? Do you think that I'm some royal prince? These things, added all together, costs over 1,000 gold coin. After a few years of saving money to the point where I would skip meals and never spend on luxury items, I only have 400 gold coins. That's only enough for 1 level 1 wood attribute monster core. Xiaoyan pointed at the motionless ring and cursed. "That's your own problem. Heh, other people would lust after my nourishing fluids, but all I'm asking is for you to get the money for the material, and you're already crying about that." Yao Lao's taunting laughter sounded within Xiaoyan's heart. "Damn it. The things that alchemists make can only be afforded by rich people." Xiaoyan helplessly laughed. His allowance each month was only 20 gold coins. This was by no means a small amount, It would be enough for a small normal family to feed themselves for an entire year. But the money that he had was barely enough to buy one of the items that Yao Lao required. This is the difference between alchemists and other people. Looks like I have to borrow it from someone. Sighing a depressed breath, Xiao Yan slowly regained his composure, and his small face recovered to his normal calm face. Turning his head towards the path up the mountain, he could make out a purple figure climbing the mountain like a spirit. Tiptoeing on the rocks, Xiao Shun was like a beautiful purple butterfly with hypnotizing curves as she gracefully scaled the mountain. As she looks upward, her gaze focuses toward the youth standing next to the cliff. Looking at the youth, Xiao Shun felt surprised. Even though it had only been a couple of hours, she noticed that compared to before, Xiao Yan has obtained something. When their eyes meet, she finally realized what Xiao Yan has regained, his own confidence. After 3 years, Xiao Yan's brilliance has returned at last. Indulging in the transparent lingering on Xiao Yan's lips, 2 dimples appear Xiao Shun's pretty face. Looks like Xiao Yan didn't need Shun Er to come and comfort him. People grow after experiencing hardships, don't they? Xiao Yan shrugs his shoulders. She will definitely regret it. Shun Er curls her lips and says the words as if she were a judge, having the final say on a court case. Xiao Yan lightly smiles, pats his clothes, and walks towards her. When he gets near her, looking at Shun Er, who's about the same height, he glances at the young, but nevertheless pretty face. Suddenly, Xiao Yan feels dizzy, remembering the girl who would be drooling all the time and following Xiao Yan everywhere. She's so pretty now. Lightly smiling, Xiao Yan's gaze softens, and he rudely pinches Xiao Shun's face underneath her shocked look. Shun Er's grown up, but you turned out fine. Not forgetting how Xiao Yan Gege would be covered with bruises trying to pick fruit from the trees. Stunned at Xiao Yan's intimate actions, Shun Er stiffens for a whole second before her pitch black, free of impurities, eyes smiles. When she was still small, Xiao Yan loved to pinch her cheeks, but ever since the event 3 years ago, he set up an invisible wall next to his heart and pushed everyone out. No matter how hard she tried, she would always be disappointed by the cold and impassive attitude of his. He's back. But it seems like he still considers me to be immature. He's such a log. Shun Er complains in her heart after an instant. Shun Er criticizes herself for being too greedy. Shun Er, for these past 3 years, please don't blame Xiao Yan Gege for being like that. I was living day by day, but thankfully you were always by my side. Xiao Yan awkwardly nods his head and apologizes. Shun Er sweetly smiles. The grievances she had endured for the past 3 years disappeared with the awkward apology. Oh, right. Shun Er, how much money do you have? Letting go of Shun Er's face, Xiao Yan does a hollow laugh and asks. In his clan, with the exception of his father, Shun Er was the only person that was in a good relationship with him. He had just shamed his father this morning, so he could not bear to face his father to ask for money, which is why he asked Shun Er. Money? Blinking her crystal clear eyes, Shun Er is taken by surprise. Xiao Yan Gege needs money? Yes, I want to buy some items, though I'm a bit short. Xiao Yan felt embarrassed. This was the first time he borrowed money from a girl. Looking at the usual frigid Xiao Yan, now in distress, Xiao Shun Er looks at a completely different person, covering her mouth and smiling cutely. I have more than 1,000 gold coins. Is that enough? If not... While speaking, Shun Er's fingers behind her swiftly flick, and a purple gold card suddenly appears between her fingers. On the card are 5 different waves of color. 5-wave purple cold card in Dochi mainland. You have to be at least a Dao Ling, if Daozhou is first, Dao Ling is fourth, to have the honor of using this type of gold card that represents their rank. Of course, some special powers also have the privilege of getting the card. That's enough. Happily nodding his head, Xiao Yan forcefully tried to stop himself from pinching Shun Er's cute face. Don't worry, I'll pay you back later, Xiao Yan promises while patting his chest. You don't need to pay me back. Shun Er pouts and quickly hides her purple gold card. Let's go. It's almost night now. Tomorrow I'll bring you to Wutong City for a walk. Xiao Yan waved towards the girl and cheerfully descended the mountain. Standing still, Shun Er delightfully looked at the youth who had regained his boldness from 3 years ago. Smiling softly, she murmured, Nalan Yanran. Should I despise you or be grateful to you? Early morning, the sun shone warmly through the window onto the body of the cross-legged youth in meditation. Whew! After meditating nearly all night, Xiaoyan inhaled deeply. A translucent white airflow that was visible to the naked eyes went through his mouth and nose and into his body, nursing his body and bones. White light shined from his eyes as he suddenly opened his eyes. Xiaoyan stretched himself and passionately says, "This is exactly this feeling. After 3 years, the feeling of qi has returned." He slowly gets out of his bed, exercises himself a bit before starting changing. From outside the room, Shunair's voice softly carries inside. "Xiaoyan Gege, still sleeping? She arrived here so early." Shaking his head, Xiaoyan turned around and then searched his drawers. Finally, with reluctance, he pulled out a small box and carefully opened it. He narrowed his eyes from the glint of silver inside that box. "And this is my entire savings." Holding his money box, Xiaoyan smiled bitterly while shaking his head. Xiaoyan gently smiled as he walked out of his room and saw the dazzling girl in front of his door. Shunair had changed into a pale green outfit that made her look even more naturally beautiful. She also had a pair of tight pants that stretched across her slender thighs and long legs, emphasizing her curves. With long legs, Shunair can be compared to young girls on Earth, full of youthful vitality and seductivity, of course. She has her special elegance, which Xiaoyan had never seen on any other girl but her. "Here, it's what you'll need." Looking at Xiaoyan exiting his room, Shunair smiled and handed him a black card. "This is a common card. The maximum it can contain is only 5,000 gold coins." Receiving the black card, Xiaoyan teases, "Little girl, why are you wearing such an attractive outfit? Could it be you're having a date with somebody else?" "Yeah, this is the first time in 3 years that Xiaoyan Gege has invited me out." Shunair is very flattered, so of course I have to dress up a little. Xiaoyan's intimate tease made Shunair's eyes bend into a shallow crescent shape while smiling coquettishly. Reluctantly shaking his head, Xiaoyan smiles back happily. They chat while walking together toward the city. At about halfway, they were greeted by some clansmen looking at their affectionate conversation with a strange face. Shunair, be it beauty or talent, is the brightest pearl of the young generation in the clan. She usually is friendly to everybody, but under her light smile is indifference. Greetings with her are easy, but to start a long conversation would be very difficult. Ignoring the looks of the other clansmen, Xianyan quickly leads Shunair out of the clan before slowing down and leisurely peeking at the stall on the side of the street. Wutang City lives up to its name of being one of the larger cities in Jioma Empire by the sheer number of people living in it. Even though the sun was beating down, on the streets were thousands, if not tens of thousands of people. There would even be 1 or 2 bizarre races. Maybe it was because of Xiaoyan beside her, but Shunair became a lot more active after she exited the clan. She tugged the reluctant Xiaoyan into a variety of stalls. Her tender laughter made the scorching street a little cooler. When Shunair finally got tired, Xiaoyan finally brought her to the nearby pharmacy. After spending about 900 gold coins, he bought 3 stalks of 20-year purple-leaf bluegrass, along with 2 stalks of 5-year bone-washing grass. These were both low-end materials and would be able to be bought at a regular pharmacy. For higher-end materials, Xiaoyan would have had to find them himself or buy them at an auction, or if he was lucky, in a high-end pharmacy. Looking at the rapidly decreasing funds, Xiaoyan bitterly smiled. He realized how important money was in Doshi mainland. Anyways, he got all of the herbs. All that was left was the level 1 wood-attributed monster core. Monster cores in the Doshi mainland, they are also known as magic crystals. The monster core is the energy nuclei within a magic monster. The monster core is filled with extremely violent world energy. When facing this kind of violent world energy, even a Dao Wang wouldn't risk absorbing a monster core. Even though monster cores cannot be absorbed directly, it is a core ingredient in alchemy. A monster core that goes through an alchemist's refining can be infused with some herbs to become desirable and expensive pills that can increase one's strength. Furthermore, monster cores can be placed on weapons. The weapon that has been fused with a monster core does not only have increased destructive power, it can also have special Du Qi effects and becomes a highly sought-after commodity in the Douchi mainland. Besides weapons, monster cores can also be added to armors and defensive equipment. The defensive equipment that have monster cores have an extreme defense and give their users an extra safety net when they're in danger. With that many uses, monster cores are naturally the most sought-after items within the Douchi mainland. Not only Duja, but even respectable alchemists search in person for high-level monster cores in order to create higher quality level pills. Under such demand, the supply for monster cores on the mainland is always unable to meet the demand from the buyers. Thus, whenever a high-level core appears in any auction or other setting, it was bought immediately at a high price. Because of the high value of monster cores, many mercenary groups specialize in killing magic monsters for a living. But getting a monster core is not a simple task. First, magic monsters are not only extremely strong, but also very cunning. Because of their devious nature and special attacking methods, magical beasts can be much stronger than humans of the same rank. Hence, without outstanding power of your own, trying to kill a magical beast on your own is impossible and may possibly lose your life without getting a magical core. Even if you do kill a magic beast, not all magical beasts possess a magic core. The probability of a magical beast having a core is almost random, so a mercenary group could have half of their force killed trying to kill a magic monster and yet not find a core. These kinds of incidents happen all the time in Douchi mainland. Thus, the price of monster cores in Douchi mainland are all very expensive. Bringing Shun'er through twisting alleys, Xiaoyan finally arrives at a market that's slightly south in the city. In Wutang City, there are a few medium-sized markets, and all of them are controlled by one of the three clans. The market Xiaoyan is going in is under Xiao Clan's control. Even though it's under Xiao Clan's control, Xiao Clan is actually only maintaining order and safety in the market. And for compensation, be it mercenaries or merchants who set up stalls, they have to pay taxes to the clan. This is the rule of Douchi mainland for a long time, and rarely anybody would try to go against it. At the front entrance of the market, there were two guards from Xiao Clan. They undoubtedly knew Xiaoyan and Shun'er. Judging from when the guards saw them coming, the guards paused and immediately bowed. Slightly nodding his head, Xiaoyan walked inside, and looking at the never-ending stream of people, he couldn't help himself from licking his lips. No wonder the clan keeps the market under strict control. With this many people visiting the market, the profits for the clan can't be low. Third young master, Miss Shun'er, would you like to buy something in the market? Right when the two were dizzy looking at the sheer number of people, a respectful voice sounded behind them. Hearing the sound, Xiaoyan turned his head. Behind him were 7 to 8 guys that were wearing the Xiao Clan's uniform. The speaker appeared to be a 30-years-old mature man, wearing a badge with 6 gold stars. He is obviously a 6-star Duzhou. Noticing the doubt in Xiaoyan's eyes, the man honestly smiled and said, "Third young master, I'm called Pei Yan. The clan leader appointed me to be the leader of the guards for maintaining safety in the market. Last year during young master's birthday, Pei Yan, came." "Oh, it's Uncle Pei Yan." Xiaoyan blinked, and even though he does not have any impression of Pei Yan, his introduction made Xiaoyan smile. Since the man was personally appointed by his father, he would naturally be his subordinate. There would be no issues with loyalty. Even though the Xiao Clan wasn't some big and influential force, the clan was divided into different factions. If the man standing in front of him was under the control of the elders, he would have never been so kind and would have just said some customary greetings. I was bored in the clan, so I decided to come out and look around. Uncle Pei Yan, you should go and do your work. If I have any questions, I'll be sure to ask you. Xiaoyan's young voice didn't have any hints of arrogance that a normal young master might have. Instead, his voice was soft and respectful. Anyone who heard it would feel a slight sense of pride and joy. With another uncle, the smile on Pei Yan's face widened and became more sincere. Nodding his head, he said, "Then enjoy looking around, third young master. Our people are all over the market, so if you need anything, then just call out for us." Respectfully nodding his head, Xiaoyan pulled Shun'er and plunged into the horde of people, disappearing from Pei Yan's sight. "Pali, bring 2 men and follow third young master. Also, warn the thieves in the market that if any of them have any ideas on third young master or Jun, or then they don't need to be in this market anymore." Looking at the disappearing young boy and girl, Pei En turned around and his honest face was replaced by a cunning and capable face. "Yes, Captain," one of the men lowly answered, and with a wave of his hand, him and two other men also go into the multitudes of people. "Ha ha! Third young master is still so gentle, it allows people to be relaxed around him." Looking at the three men mixing in with the crowd, Pei En smiles, but in an instant, the smile turns into a frown and he sighed. "Third young master is such a nice person, it's regretful, ha." Regretfully shaking his head, Pei En leads his remaining underlings and goes to patrol the streets. Lazily following Xiaoyan, Shun accidentally glanced behind her and smiled. "Xiaoyan gay, Pei En's quite nice." Xiaoyan answered with a yup and scans towards a nearby stall. His sole perception was far greater than normal people, so he could detect the guards following him. Looking back forward, Xiaoyan slows down and walks side by side with Shun. Tilting his head, he jokes, "9. Duanqi, and already able to detect 3 hiding guards. Junair, pretty good." Junair copies Xiaoyan and cutely shrugged her shoulders, bringing out her trump card. "Smile. Stay silent." Looking at the silent Junair, a smile began to form on his lips. Lightly patting her head, he whispers, "Even though I don't know who you are or where you're from, I do know that you are my sister, and no matter what happens in the future, I will always protect you." Lightly smiling, Xiaoyan speeds up and breaks out of his line from Shun. Her feet stopping, Shun stared with her beautiful eyes at the back of the young man that just talked with her. After pausing for a while, a smile begins to creep onto her delicate face. Within the crowd, her figure was swaying back and forth, like a lotus, elegant and pretty. "Sister, Junair is a very greedy girl, though." Tilting her head, Junair mutters and then quickly catches up to the young man in front of her. Following Xiaoyan while he examines the stalls by the side, Junair and Xiaoyan slowly move into the more populated and expensive inner parts of the market. The people that come here to buy and sell usually have decent money or physical power. While Xiaoyan was engrossed in trying to find a monster core, Xiaoxun, who was bored, walked up to a clean stall and with her pale white hand picks up a light green bracelet. The bracelet wasn't crafted with anything special, but it had a hint of ice silver, which made it feel cold to the touch, perfect for hot summer days. In addition, even though the material was quite plain, the craftsmanship wasn't bad. Right when Shun decided to buy the bracelet, she remembered that she had loaned all of her money to Xiaoyan. Slightly turning around and seeing the busy young man, she could only helplessly shake her head and smile at the old stall owner. Putting down the bracelet, she lazily started moving forward. Her calm manner wouldn't let her ask anyone to buy anything for her, even if it was Xiaoyan. After walking forward for a bit, right when the bored Junair decided to go back to Xiaoyan, a clear laughter rings from ahead. "Huh, isn't this Ms. Junair? Hey, I wouldn't have thought to find you here. It must be fate." Her thin brow lightly furrowing, Junair tried to find the source of the voice but only saw a group of people. The group was following behind a luxuriously dressed young man. The young man was around 20 years old and quite handsome. His face was slightly pale, but his eyes were filled with heat and were staring at the young girl standing in front of him. Within his gaze was also an unrestrained hint of lust. Looking at the delighted, handsome youth, Shun'er's slim eyebrows wrinkled. Not paying attention to his call, she turned away. "Miss Shun'er!" Looking at Shun'er from the side, the handsome but pale young man became immediately anxious and quickly crossed to block her from the front. Blocked by the youth, Shun'er stopped her steps. Her pair of long and beautiful eyes were lazily narrowed, staring at him. Yet she did not utter a single word. Miss Shun'er stared at by pupils that were like water drops. And despite the fact that he was used to flirting with beauties, his breathing became somewhat hurried. His clever tongue had lost all of its use for the moment. "Jia Liarao, young master, if there isn't anything urgent, please get out the way. I still have to do something." Looking at this somewhat flushed youth, Shun'er finally spoke. Her soft and young voice made the young man's pale face flush with a sick red. "Hey, Miss Shun'er, have you come to the market to buy something? I'm quite free right now, so why don't we look around the market together?" Taking a deep breath within his mind, Jia Liao's smile was open and gentle. This smile, along with his status and handsomeness, had successfully landed him quite a few girls. Jia Lie Ao, young master, I already said that I have something to do. Can you move aside? Shuner's small mouth curves upward, and her voice was smooth without any hint of irritation. Being rejected by Shuner, the edges of Jia Liao's mouth twitched, but he kept his smile and pulled out a bracelet from his pockets. The bracelet was a light blue gold color and was made from blue gold. From the bracelet hanged a smooth green ball-like monster core. A soft green was emitted from the monster core and scattered its light on the bracelet, giving it a special hue. Looks like this intricate bracelet costs a lot. Since Miss Zhen has something to do, then I, Jia Liao, won't block you anymore. Jia Liao tightly clutched the bracelet and smiles. This was a bracelet that I just bought in the market. Even though it's not too expensive, it has a level 1 wood attribute monster core, which greatly helps in the recovery of Duqi. Since Miss Jun hasn't become a Daoji yet, this bracelet is perfect for you. This is just a small gift of mine, so please don't say no. After all, I would lose face in front of my underlings. At the end, Jia Liao purposefully lowered his voice, and the underlings around him, as if it was a play, grinned on cue. Looking at Jia Liao's actions, Juner's brow lifted. She didn't know how to deal with such a person. Right when she was about to refuse, her sight fell onto the green monster core on the bracelet and remembered how Xiaoyan was busily trying to find a wood attribute monster core. Her long eyelashes lightly blinked and her impassive face relaxed a bit. Looking at Shun-er's relaxed face, Jia Liao's heart flutters happily and quickly pushes the wood attribute bracelet forward. Miss Zun-er, there's no need to be courteous. Jia Lai clan and Xiao clan are both in the top 3 clans of Wutang City, so exchanging little gifts is common. I'll take the bracelet and remove the monster core and give to Xiaoyan Gigi. As for the bracelet, when he's not paying attention, I'll throw it away. With this mischievous thought, Shun-er didn't hesitate anymore and stretches her hand out, about to take the bracelet. Suddenly, a hand grabs her hand and stops her from taking the bracelet. Right when her hand was grabbed, Jun-er pauses in shock before having the do qi in her body flowing in order to protect herself. But right when her hand was about to go free from the grasp, a young male made her obediently stop struggling. Looking behind her, Jun-er saw Xiaoyan. When her sight moved a bit higher, she saw a harsh young face. Don't you know what he's like? Scowling at Shun-er, Xiaoyan criticized himself in his mind. Then he looks up and says, Jia Liao, young master, your thought is graciously accepted by Jun-er, but as for the gift, you should take it back. Looking at the destroyed atmosphere, a hint of anger flashed within Jia Liao's eyes. But in front of Jun-er, he tried to keep his gentlemanly air and waxily smiles. Xiaoyan, young master, I saw that Miss Jun-er didn't have any jewelry, so I wanted to help her a bit. Do you not want to let her have a few small trinkets to accentuate her beauty? Helplessly sighing, Xiaoyan glances at the wood attribute bracelet in Jia Liao's hand and took out another green bracelet, and with some frustration asks, do you really like bracelets? Here you go. Don't take other people's stuff for no reason. I already told you that there is no such thing as a free lunch. The ones who offer free stuff always have a hidden motive. With your innocent look, you may have been sold by someone and still wouldn't know what had happened. Hearing Xiaoyan's words that were obviously directed at him, Jia Liao's face becomes cold. But when he saw the bracelet on Xiaoyan's hand, he couldn't help but laugh. The bracelet in Xiaoyan's hands from a material standpoint couldn't have costed more than 5 gold coins, while his wood attribute bracelet, which had an authentic monster core, cost an entire 1,000 plus gold coins. The two bracelets, no matter how you look at it, either price or actual usefulness, had a huge difference, and Xiaoyan's bracelet couldn't even compare to the wood attribute bracelet. So when Jia Liao saw Xiaoyan giving such a poor bracelet to the beautiful Shun-er, he couldn't help but criticize Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan, I know that you don't have a high position in your clan, but why would you give such pitiful thing to Shun-er? Ignoring Jia Liao's taunt, Xiaoyan looked at the young girl who was staring at the bracelet in his hand and hurriedly asked, do you want it or not? If you don't, then I'll just throw it away. It was only 2-3 gold coins. Ha! Hearing Xiaoyan's words, not only did Jia Liao start laughing, his underlings also started to laugh at Xiaoyan with a ridiculing tone. But the ridiculing laugh didn't continue for long before being cut off, as if they had just had their necks cut off. On everyone was a hilariously stunned face. Jun who had been stunned, responded quickly to Xiaoyan's words. Her two hands almost instinctively reached out and snatched the bracelet in Xiaoyan's hand. After getting the bracelet, Jun realized what she had done. Perhaps she had acted a bit too impatient. A light red blush appeared on her delicate face, but Jun wasn't like other people. And after a slight period of embarrassment, she graciously hooked the bracelet onto her white wrist. Raising her head and giving a coy smile, she said, "Thank you, Xiaoyan Gege." With an ugly face, Jia Liao stared at Shun'er, who was quite intimate with Xiaoyan. On his face was apparent jealousy, and he said, "I didn't realize that Miss Shun'er's preferences were so unique. I guess I've been mistaken." Xiaoyan glances at Jia Liao in front of him, and his gaze landed on the gold star at his chest. He strangely thought, "When I saw him last year, he was only 9 Duan Qi, right? Who would have thought that he would be successful in compressing his Du Qi cyclone? But to become a Daodi at the age of 21, his talent is barely decent." Seeing that Jia Liao had no intention of leaving, Xiaoyan pursed his lips. His wasn't affected by the power and status behind Jia Liao. And since the Xiao clan and Jia Lai clan didn't have good relations in the first place, there was no need for him to act humble. Stroking his nose, Xiaoyan lightly said, "Jia Liao, young master, your womanizer habits are known by the entire Wutang city. Shun'er is still young and doesn't have time to play with your flirting games, so hopefully you can go after other girls in the future. Stay away from him." After speaking to Jia Liao, Xiaoyan ignored the green-faced Jia Liao and used his age as an advantage to arrogantly speak to Shun'er. "Okay." Shun'er's agile eyes blinked and nodded without any hesitation. To her, Jia Liao was just a stranger that she saw a couple of times, while Xiaoyan, for her, was irreplaceable. Since Xiaoyan told her to stay away from Jia Liao, she'll just stay away from him. The choice wasn't a hard one for Shun'er. Seeing Shun'er nod at Xiaoyan's words, Jia Liao's mouth started twitching. He curled his fists and stared coldly at the calm and impassive young man before him. Jia Liao's underlings, seeing that their young master was quite angry, quickly walked forward and surrounded both, Xiaoyan and Xiaoshun, their gazes revealing their bad intentions. Even though it was deep within the market, there were still quite a few people around, and they turned their questioning gazes toward the surrounded group. Xiaoyan and Jia Liao had quite a reputation in Wutang City. Xiaoyan for his fall from genius to cripple, and Jia Liao for his less than honorable encounters with other women. Even though they were infamous, they were still well known within the city. Looking Jia Liao's group's movements, Xiaoyan's brow jumped, and on his young face, a hint of confidence creeped. Lightly turning his head, he whistled towards a spot within the market. Seeing Xiaoyan's actions, everyone turned their head to the direction in which Xiaoyan whistled and saw the market's guards furiously coming over under the lead of Pei En. With his fellow guards, Pei En rushed towards Xiaoyan, and quickly, the market's guards surrounded Jia Liao's underlings, who were surrounding Xiaoyan and Xiaoshun. "Third young master, anything wrong?" Walking up to Xiaoyan, Pei En swept his glance over Jia Liao and then respectfully asked Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan lightly smiles and turned to face the green-faced Jia Liao. He nonchalantly said, "Jia Liao, young master, this market is controlled by Xiao clan. Are you sure you want to fight here?" Jia Liao's eyes revealed his fear for Pei En, but he immediately sneered at Xiaoyan. "Do you only know to rely on your clan? If you are a man, what you want to say is, if I am a man, then I would fight you one-on-one, right?" Xiaoyan waved his hand and cut Jia Liao off. Jia Liao sneered again, and with a hint of challenge, he said, "Yup, are you afraid?" Looking at the arrogant face of Jia Liao, Xiaoyan helplessly sighed and puts his hand up to feel his forehead. Moments later, he raised his head and shrugs his shoulder, and with innocence and naivety, he asked, "Jia Liao, young master, I would like to ask, how old are you?" The edge of Jia Liao's mouth twitched and he doesn't respond. "Big guy, you're already 21. How old am I?" 15. You're actually asking a kid that hasn't performed his coming-of-age ritual to fight you? Don't you feel that your request is over the top? Don't you feel embarrassed? Xiaoyan's innocent appearance was so realistic that Shun'er beside him couldn't help but let out a soft laugh. "Ha." Hearing the young man's words, the mercenary and merchant stall owners also let out laughs. Xiaoyan was right. At his current age, Xiaoyan could only be considered a kid, but Jia Liao would be considered an adult. A challenge of this kind made everyone look down upon Jia Liao. The laughter of the crowd was like a bucket of cold water and helped Jie Liao regain his calm. From Xiaoyan's maturity and calmness to his impassive attitude, it was extremely easy for people to forget how old he really was. Therefore, after Xiaoyan said his age, Jie Liao finally remembered that the young man standing in front of him was only 15. Gnashing his teeth, Jie Liao looked at the leering guards behind Xiaoyan and realized that he didn't have any chance of retaliation today. He could only shake his head and coldly say, "One more year and you'll be undergoing the coming-of-age ritual, right?" I think that someone as crippled as you, once you finish the coming-of-age ritual, will only be sent to some remote and poor village. At that time, you won't even have the power to enter Wutang City. Pretty pitiful. Xiaoyan lightly smiles and nonchalantly shrugs his shoulders. Jie Liao's eyelids flickered. He didn't know why, but whenever he saw the calm face of the young man in front of him, a mysterious rage boiled within him. You're only a cripple and trying to act like you know everything. Forcefully suppressing his anger, Jie Liao let out a cold and with a wave of his hand, commands his underlings to exit the crowd. Oh, right. His steps stopping, Jie Liao seemed to have remembered something, and turning back, he said, "Xiao Yan, young master, I heard that your Xiao clan had their marriage with the Nalan clan revoked. Actually, that isn't unexpected. With your Qi talent, you just can't match the Miss Nalan." Ha ha ha. After saying that, Jie Liao left laughing. Xiaoyan's gaze coldly followed the exit of Jie Liao. Tightly holding Shuner, who was about to rush out, he quietly said, "He's just a mad dog. If he bites you, why should you bite back?" "But he went too far. We can't just let him off like this?" Her eyebrows furrowing, Shun indignantly replied, "There will always be an opportunity." Xiaoyan smirked, and the coldness coming from his voice made Pei-En shuddered. A lion's bite might not be that scary, but a lion that knows patience is another story, a scary one. "Uncle Pei-En, sorry for troubling you." Xiaoyan turned back and smiled gently toward Pei-En's group. The previously intense atmosphere all of a sudden changed into a lighthearted mood. Impressed by the control over emotions that Xiaoyan exercised, Pei-En's smile was reinforced by a sense of respect. Even with Xiaoyan's lack of talent, Xiaoyan's future accomplishments probably wouldn't be too shabby with his mental prowess. Ha ha ha, third young master's joking. This is Xiao clan's territory. We wouldn't allow Jie Li clan to do as they please here. Pei-En smiled, and seeing that Xiaoyan started to look around, he quickly took his leave along with his men. Looking at the exiting Pei-En and his group, Xiaoyan turned around and ruffled Shuner's hair and said slightly forcefully, "A level 1 monster core made you forget your morals? You know as well as I do what kind of person Jie Liao is. The moment you take his stuff, he would definitely ask for favors." Straightening her hair, Shuner flipped her hands upwards. "He wanted to give it me. It was free." Xiaoyan rolled his eyes and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "It isn't like that's something precious. Did you really need to act like that? Don't forget, you're the young genius in Xiao clan." Shuner wrinkles her nose and raised the bracelet on her wrist. She taunted, "So Xiaoyan Gege has also been noticing Shuner." Xiaoyan stayed silent, and pulling on Shuner's hand, they walked towards some stalls deeper in the market. After walking past quite a few stalls, Xiaoyan's feet finally stopped. He bent down and stared at a green orb that still had a trace of blood on the stall and said, "I've finally found it." Moving his hand across the stall, Xiaoyan's was about to grab the monster core when his hand stiffened. A strange foreboding struck his mind. Licking his lips, Xiaoyan continued to pick up the monster core, but his gaze, as if by accident, swept across the stall. Moments later, his gaze landed on a piece of black metal that was displayed beside the monster core. The black metal piece seemed extremely old with many specks of rust and even a couple spots of dirt. It looked as if it had just been excavated. "Hey, Yan Brat, buy the black metal piece. It's something good." Right when Xiaoyan was confused about why he felt such a strong feeling towards the seemingly worthless metal, Yao Lao's voice sounded in his mind. Listening to the voice inside his head, Xiaoyan blinked and secretly nodded. Instead of immediately grabbing the black metal piece, Xiaoyan gently picked up the green monster core that was still dripping blood, and looking at the shabby-looking mercenary standing behind the stall, he asked cheerfully, "Which magic monster did this monster core comes from?" "Ha ha ha, the eyes of young master are really good. This is a monster core from a first-level magic monster named Swallowwood Fox. It is a high-quality core. Our sharp-teeth mercenary group waited 3 days and ambushed 5 Swallowwood Foxes before finally obtaining this magic core. Noticing Xiaoyan's luxurious outfit, the mercenary rapidly advertised his wares. If this object is to young master's liking, I think 500 gold coins would be a good price. While obtaining this core, we had several brothers who got injured quite heavily. Xiaoyan slowly wiped the remaining blood off of the magic core, noticing they haven't completely clotted yet. He nodded slightly and glanced towards the 2 golden stars on the chest of the mercenary and commented, "Too expensive. Normally, a level 1 magic core's price would only be from 400 to 450 gold coins. Furthermore, even if the Swallowwood Fox is a magic beast, its attack power isn't too high. Are your underlings not Dao Jazz?" The corner of his mouth slightly jerking. The mercenary laughed dryly. He did not expect the youth standing in front of him to be so knowledgeable about the magic core market, and replied, 470 gold coins then. No more, no less. We have to live by this. Huh. Sighing under the mercenary's anxious eyes, Xiaoyan bent down and randomly grabbed many things from the stall, conveniently including the mysterious metal piece in the mess. Then he said, 470 gold coins for all of these. Looking at the goods on Xiaoyan's hands, the mercenary let out a relieved sigh, since none of the items in Xiaoyan's hands were expensive. All right. Cheerfully producing some gold coins, Xiaoyan did not waste another moment and left immediately. Ha, brat, to be so cautious in a mundane task of buying things. The elder's taunting voice sounded in Xiaoyan's head as he turned to leave the shop. Those bastards are all swindlers. They'll immediately increase the price if you show interest in their wares. I don't want to lose money for something stupid like that. After answering, Xiaoyan stopped paying attention to the elder inside his ring and leisurely exited the market and returned to the clan with Shun Er. After parting with Shun Er, Xiaoyan impatiently ran back to his room and carefully locked the door. Turning his head and seeing the elder, who left the ring since God knows when, Xiaoyan brought out the recently purchased herbs and magic core. He hastily asked, all the required ingredients are here. What do we have to do? The elder cheerfully laughed and his gaze scanned the ingredients on the table before suddenly asking, don't you want to know what that black metal piece is? Eh? Xiaoyan paused before realizing that the elder was referring to his accidental purchase. He quickly took out the black metal piece and examined it from top to bottom. But after examining it, his brows furrowed and asked, this, what does it do? Yao Lao took the black metal piece and laughed. There seems to be a do technique inside here. And the creator of this metal piece was probably also an alchemist, because only people that have a strong soul perception can feel the power within this metal piece. Do technique? Xiaoyan's eyes brightened and he hurriedly asked, what level is it? In the Do Qi mainland, the importance of Do techniques isn't lower than Qi methods. A strong Do technique would allow one to perform at a level far beyond what they are capable of. For example, a Do Zhe being able to fight a Do Shi even though his Do Qi is at a disadvantage. Dao techniques and Qi methods are both split into 4 levels of decreasing power: Tian, Dai, Xuan, and Huang. Normally, the Dao techniques that are easily accessible are at most high Huang level, and for higher Do techniques, one would have to go to a large clan or faction. Of course, Do Qi mainland is huge, and there are some special circumstances in which the top Dao techniques are lost and found by some lucky individual. The black metal piece that Xiaoyan has right now was probably the lost work of some ancient person. Yao Lao turned the metal plate around and smiled. Vacuum hand. Low Xuan level. Low Xuan level? Xiaoyan's face was filled with happiness. He didn't expect that the trash he purchased would have a Xuan level Do technique. In his own clan, the Xiao clan, the highest Dao technique was only a middle Xuan level, and only the clan leader and some elders could learn it. Vacuum hand. If trained to max, it can suck up boulders that are thousands of pounds. Against enemies, it can forcibly suck the blood out of their body. Forcibly suck blood from a body? His face full of surprise, Xiaoyan swallowed dryly and exclaimed, This is awesome. Once the blood leaves the body, they would die, right? Don't be happy yet. This only works if your level is higher than your opponent. If you meet someone stronger than you, they can use the chance to get close to you, and the unlucky would be you. Yao Lao carelessly threw the metal plate to the side. Looks like he doesn't think too highly of the dough technique. Yao Lao was of high status and naturally had high standards, but for Xiao Yan, this was a high-level dough technique. He immediately happily picked it up and laughed. Even with that, it's better than the dough techniques in the clan. I'll learn this from now on. Ha, with your third Duan Qi, it would be amazing if you could pull up a tree branch with your vacuum hand and you want to suck the blood out of someone. Shaking his head, Yao Lao heavily criticized Xiao Yan. Rolling his eyes, Xiao Yan ignored Yao Lao and smiled while hugging the metal piece. Look at yourself. Having a low Xuan Do technique makes you this happy. You're embarrassing me. Helplessly shaking his head, Yao Lao grabbed the monster core on the table and ordered Xiao Yan, "Go get a huge bowl of water." Seeing that Yao Lao was about to start refining the pill, Xiao Yan hurriedly put away the black metal piece and cheerfully went to prepare. In the calm room, Yao Lao picked up the purple bluegrass with his left hand. Moments later, he lets out a deep breath and a white flame appears in his hand. When the flame appeared, the temperature within the room rose exponentially. Without blinking, Xiao Yan stared at the white ball of flame. Although he didn't know the process of refining pills by alchemists, to materialize Du Qi was an impossible task for even his father. With a calm face, the white fire in Yao Lao's hands expanded and swallowed the purple bluegrass. Within the flame, the purple bluegrass instantly became a green liquid ball. Yao Lao's right hand picked up another stalk of purple bluegrass and threw it into the white fire. After throwing all 3 stalks of purple bluegrass into the fire, the ball of green liquid became visibly bigger. The green liquid slowly shriveled within the fire. The high temperature relentlessly burned the impurities within the green liquid. With the flame, the green liquid became smaller and smaller in volume. After a few seconds, it was only about the size of a thumb. Afterwards, Yao Lao threw the 2 stalks of bone-washing flowers into the flame, and after they finished burning, the remaining liquid mixed with the original green liquid. After that was the refinement of the monster core. The third step took a whole hour, but Yao Lao still seemed full of energy and without any signs of fatigue. After an entire hour, the tough monster core had become a ball of green liquid. The violent energy within the monster core was softened by Yao Lao's magical formula. On his hand, the white flame slowly disappeared. Looking at the green ball floating on top of Yao Lao's hand, Xiao Yao rubbed his hands together. With his superior soul perception, he could clearly feel the bountiful energy within the energy ball. "Teacher, do I just eat it?" Xiao Yan blinked his eyes and asked impatiently. "If you want to die, then eat it. With your Qi pass, you would become a true cripple within seconds." Giving Xiao Yan a white eye, Yao Lao flicks the ball, and it accurately flew into the bowl of water. Immediately, the bowl of clear water turned to a dark green shade. "From now on, you should train in there. With your talent and barring any unforeseen circumstances, you should be able to get to 7 Duan Qi within a year." Yao Lao claps the dust off of his hands and lightly smiles towards Xiao Yan. With obvious happiness, Xiao Yan hurriedly nodded his head. "Oh, I almost forgot. This medicine will only last for 2 months, which means you need to go buy the materials that you got today again every 2 months. Yao Lao revealed a sly smile. Xiao Yan's happiness disappeared from his face, and he nodded his head with reluctance. "Damn it, only rich people can afford to use this stuff." The warm sun filtered through the window and lazily sprayed into the tidy room. Within the room, a young man with a bare upper body was sitting crossed within a wooden bowl. His 2 hands were knit together into a strange symbol. His 2 eyes were shut tightly while his breath was calm but powerful. In the wooden bowl beneath him, a mysterious green liquid was strangely sparkling. As he trained longer, the green liquid within the bowl began to slowly evaporate, giving off a light green stream of air. Stream slowly lifted upwards and squirmed into the young man's nose with his breathing. Once the stream was inside his body, the young man's face became shiny and smooth like white jade. As if he felt the ever-increasing Dou Qi within his body, the young man's face revealed a light smile. After confirming his success, the young man didn't stop there. He still had his eyes shut tight and kept his hands in the same position. He didn't even budge and maintained his maximally efficient position as he greedily sucked up the energy within the green liquid. The green liquid sticking to the young man's body was slowly absorbed by his skin, strengthening his bones and cleaning his Qi pass. Under the young man's restless absorbance, more and more green streams came up from the bowl, and slowly they became so dense that they covered the young man's naked body in a layer of mist. Under the restless training, the bright sunshine that came in through the window slowly became weaker, and the room became a lot cooler. In the wooden bowl, the young man gathered in the final wisps of green air, and his eyelashes twitched before opening to reveal two pitch-black eyes. Within the pitch-black eyes, a white glow passed through, but this time, it had a hint of green. Slowly letting out a breath, the young man quickly stood up and let the cool water droplets flow off of his body. Taking a lazy stretch and feeling the abundant doqi within his body, the young man muttered, "At this pace, I can probably get to the 5th duanqi in 2 months." After preparing everything, Xiaoyan stayed in his room for an entire half month. In the time he stayed in his room, besides eating and attending bodily functions, he had been training his qi nonstop. Even though training was extremely boring and tiring, it was nothing compared to the taunts and ridicules that Xiaoyan had endured for the past 3 years. The 3 full years of taunts had taught him how important strength was in this world. Even though the days passed tiresomely, the results of them were pleasing. The effects of Yao Lao's bowl of elixir was much stronger than what Xiaoyan, and even the creator of it, Yao Lao, had thought it would have. Yao Lao had predicted that it would take at least a month for Xiaoyan to get to 4 duanqi, but Xiaoyan only took half that time. At this, even Yao Lao was surprised at the speed and efficiency in which Xiaoyan trained. Even though Xiaoyan had done this before, the speed at which he was going right now isn't a bit too incredible. The most important and toughest part about training Du Qi is in the basics. The 10 duanqi would take people 10 to even 20 years. Of course, once a person becomes a doji, then their training speed would increase exponentially. If one can only raise 1 duanqi in a year before becoming a doji, then that same person could probably go up a couple of stars in a year once after becoming a doji. When the training speed was slanted towards later times, Xiaoyan's performance in half a month was surprising to say the least. Walking out of the bowl without hesitation, Xiaoyan looked back at the lighter green liquid in the bowl. The lighter color was definitely due to his training, and he helplessly shook his head while whispering, "Can this sustain for another month and a half?" Wiping off the remaining water droplets, Zhao Yan randomly put on a fresh suit of clothing and crawled onto his soft bed. After doing so, he reached behind his pillow to take out the pitch-black metal piece. The rust on the steel piece had already been wiped off by Xiao Yan to reveal a smooth and glowing surface. It was quite mysterious. For the past half month, Xiao Yan had been intently studying this metal piece that contained a low Xuan level Du technique whenever he took a break from training. In the half month under the instructions of Yao Lao, Xiao Yan finally had a bit of understanding of the techniques involved. But because of the lack of Du Qi, he couldn't use it for anything useful, which made Xiao Yan a little disappointed. Placing the metal piece between his 2 palms, Xiao Yan closed his eyes and used his soul perception to observe the black metal plate. With the calming of Xiao Yao's breath, the room was once again peaceful. Another long silence passed before Xiao Yan opened his eyes again and raised his right hand. His right hand was curved into a claw, and his light Du Qi, under Xiao Yan's insistence, quickly went through the few qi and pressure points on his palm to become a pulling force. Pung! The ceramic vase that Xiao Yan pointed to made a few circles before falling down the tables. And with a clear crash, it shattered into countless pieces. Even though the Du technique is at the Zhuan level, my Dao Qi is too low, and I can barely use the technique. Seeing the destruction that he had caused, Xiao Yan whispered to himself, "Looking at the power it has right now, if I want to have enough force to vacuum a person towards me, then I need to be at 7 duanqi. Whatever, let's go to our clan hall to find some lower-level Dao techniques. This vacuum hand, it won't be of much use for some time. But since I can train my Do Qi again, I don't need to use my foolish method of training that I used before." Sighing again, Xiao Yan climbed off of his bed and glanced at the motionless black ring before leaving the house. Wincing his eyes and adjusting to the blazing sun, Xiao Yan carefully closed his door before lazily walking onto the stone path towards the clan's back rooms. To the sides of the stone path were emerald green willows. The bountiful green felt soothing and sharply contrasted with the scorching heat. Turning onto a different path, a young girl's laughter greeted him. Because of the disturbed calm, Xiaoyan furrowed his brows, and following the source of the laughter, he saw a couple of young girls coming towards him from another path. Crowded by other girls, a pretty girl was laughing. The charming face that she had completely overshadowed the other girls beside her. She was the girl that was second to Shuner in the Dao Qi testing Xiaomei. Glancing at the girl that had once stuck to his side, calling countless biaogis, a flash of unrestrained mocking went across Xiaoyan's face. Lightly shaking his head, Xiao Yao retrieved his sight. TL, Biao Go is brother not in one's direct family. This is a formal saying compared to Ji Yige, which is more of an familiar saying. When Xiaomei reached the road Xiaoyan was on, Xiaomei's charming laughter died out as she had seen Xiaoyin. The sun scattered its light and made the impassive young man with his hands behind his head indescribably attractive. A pair of pretty large eyes stared at the young man, coming closer and trying to distinguish whether there was a light smile or ridicule hanging on the edges of his mouth. Xiaomei mentally gravitated towards Xiaoyan. Suddenly, she felt as if she had lost something. 3 years ago, that young man, on the edge of his mouth, had that intoxicating curve. That wraps up the content for today's episode. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel to get notifications for the next episode. For now, goodbye, and see you next time.